What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 314. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden. And Hogue, the lawman, is back with us today. Mr. Tie Guy is here, and we got a lot of games to talk about today. So it's going to be a good show. We got a bunch of games. We got Dragon Age, of course. We got PlayStation and Concord. We got to bring them up again. We got a pizza bet to finalize, which, sucked. Didn't go the way we hoped. But but I'm here, and the lawman himself, Mr. Hogue, is back with us, hopefully feeling 95% or so. How you doing, my friend?
I am about 95% or so. I have a little bit of a chest cold right now. I'm going to try not to sound awful on stream, but I'm excited about being here for 314. It's Pi Day episode of Season Gaming.
That's true.
Get excited.
That is true. I hadn't thought about that. It is, yes. Episode 3.14, actually, yes. The Tie Guy, the pizza guy. How you doing, man?
What's up? I'm feeling hungry. What's going on, guys? Nice to see you. Friends. Hello. Yeah, it's good. Good week. Glad to be here, friends.
Yeah. It is a good week. Games are flowing like nobody's business. We have, like I said, we've been talking about Dragon Age returning for a long time now. It is here. We have thoughts, probably a lot of thoughts. But before we get to any of that, so we're going to close out the pizza bet today. We've got Dragon Quest 3 to talk about, the HD 2D remake coming. Monster Hunter Wilds beta is out there. People are loving it. We've got the first Blumhouse horror game to talk about. A lot of good things going on. So it's going to be a good show. Hope you can hang out with us. And let's go ahead and get caught up with our early supporters here, which we always greatly appreciate. And we kick off the episode with none other than
Sandal with the €2 super chat asking enchantment, which I'm happy to say, Sandal, enchantment. Indeed, enchantment.
We'll get to Dragon Age. Is there any confirmation he's in the new one? Is this guy around? Was he in the other two or only in the first one?
Just the first one.
The enchantment system isn't really in this one. So,
that's kind of yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. It's a very different game, but I think he might have had a cameo in 2 or something. Maybe not.
We'll just assume Sandal's happily living his life as a darkspawn somewhere.
True, yeah, he did go into the deep roads and never returned, so we don't know.
Yeah,
he's with you in the first game. I don't think he's in the others.
All right. Well,
I do like the commitment to the bit. That's the profile picture, the name.
He did all.
Got it.
Good stuff.
That's him.
That's him. Yeah. That's the guy.
It actually says the super chat came from the deep road. So, however he did that is really good. Thank you, my friend Googleman.
Googleman81, €10. Steam has a free candy corn chomp animated sticker available still.
Going right now. Thank you.
I got all the other free ones instead. Why is Dr. Pepper better than regular Coke?
It's not.
Loaded question and no question mark. So maybe that's by design. I don't know.
You don't think it is? I think Dr. Pepper is better than Coke.
I think it might be regular Coke. Really depends. Depends on the situation.
How does it depend? Which one do you like better?
I mean,
we can't answer that.
Coke, or we talking?
What do you mean? It depends.
Depends on how cold it is. Whether it's a Coke from McDonald's.
There's a vibe check, right? Like, are we talking canned?
Your ability to overanalyze things is legendary.
I mean, look, it's my job, bro. You gotta look a little deeper. Go look a little deeper. Have you guys seen that video of the lady who does a blind taste test of like 7 different Dr. Peppers from different sources, like McDonald's, a can, a bottle, etc.
No.
And it's like 8 different sources, and you can see the bottles on the other side, and she can't see them. She's just drinking through straws, and she's like, that's that. I'm like, holy. So clearly there are degrees of, flavor depending on the source. She knew McDonald's from Jack in the Box. Like that's crazy. So
fountain sodas I like way better than like canned soda.
But which restaurant they came from?
Well, it depends how much water they put in with the syrup.
I know. She knew. So that's my point, is it really does matter. Like,
Yeah,
don't know.
but
I've had-
Dr. Pepper versus Coke, they're two different things. Like,
but
it's
haven't
not
you had a good
variations.
Dr. Pepper and a flaccid Dr. Pepper? There's
Flaccid.
The worst diet in history. So, but I assume that's not included here because it's just Dr. Pepper.
you're talking about diet Dr. Pepper?
Yes, Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
All right. Googleman always getting us onto Foodcast, but appreciate you, my friend. Willow, also appreciate you as always, kicking off the show with our 5 SG memberships. Thank you as always. Absolute legend, the both of you. Don Lionheart is here as well. He's already ready to talk about Dragon Age. You got to pace yourself, Don.
Don Lionheart with $5. Veilguard is great. Its gameplay isn't what we go to Dragon Age for. I can understand not caring for it, but it's fun / serviceable, and the rest is incredible. Noise.
Fun / serviceable. Stamp it on the box, folks.
I think you're speaking about the gameplay itself, but yeah.
Combat, yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Don, too early, man.
Yeah.
Too early. Thank you, Don. Vry, first super chat, by the way.
Vry 36 for $10. Welcome to the Super Chat Club. He writes, or she writes, you should call off / delay the Veilguard bet due to EA pulling a CD project and withholding review copies for people that would be critical of the game. Hate to break it to you, Vry, but every publisher does that. They choose the outlets that they think are going to be the most fair, and they don't give codes to the ones that they think are going to be less fair, and that's how they do it.
Well, Travis, I think fairness is separate from positivity. And certainly I don't think that EA or BioWare is doing anything different than most of the publishers that put out game review copies and decide where they send codes to. But that's distinct from fairness, I think.
Yes, well, I'm describing it as in the terms that they would use.
It's just part of the process.
It's part of the process. I mean, you see certain degrees to it. Like some publishers are really good about like finding the 90 tiny outlets you've never heard of that have their company name in their name and doing that. I don't think that's what happened here, but I do think that there's a kind of tendency to go with outlets that they know are like a little bit more predictable in terms of, they're not going to have like crazy folks that just write crazy stuff just to make headlines.
Yeah, and you say predictable or fair. I might say lenient, more susceptible to pretty colors, what have you. We can have that conversation, certainly.
I don't think EA knows which outlets are more susceptible to pretty colors. I don't think that's a thing, but yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, this is not I know what you're referring to because there was like a Fextralice video out there and stuff, and trust me when I say other reviews have said that's absolute nonsense. To Travis's point, it's not a singular example here with Dragon Age that is a big outlier to what happens with other games. This is what happens, period. So if you trust reviews on other games, you should trust reviews for Dragon Age. It's that simple.
Also, my guess is that the vast majority of the outlets that did not receive reviews and will post them later will not be posted on Metacritic.
Yes, but being posted on Metacritic is not the sole arbiter of what is a worthwhile review.
True. Of course. But it is when it comes to the pizza bet, which is what he was referring to.
That's Open Critic. You still won, but it's Open Critic.
Same thing.
Open Critic, by the way, you can post your review.
I don't expect it to move much. I mean, you'd have to have like a lot of reviews from people that think that it's significantly worse than an 80. Usually, if something's in an 80, it's because it's a divisive game, and there's some people that think that it's much better than an 80, and some people think that it's worse than an 80. But
there aren't a lot of 8s out there on Veilguard. There are a lot of 10s and 6s. It's an unusual little beast.
Yeah. And that makes it harder to move, just to be clear. It's going to be glued to that 80. So I feel pretty good about my prediction. Yeah.
No, that's what I was going to say. Like even our review will come later, and whatever it is, high or low, it's not going to move much. To your point, it's pretty settled at this point. Fry, thank you for the first super chat. Alex is here.
Alejandro Segovia for $1.99. He writes, "Hi from my console funeral. Rest in peace, PS5."
His PS5. He's reviewing Dragon Quest 3 for us. His PS5 died on Friday. like dead.
In the
Yeah,
video.
dude.
It was so sad.
So my question is, did his PS5 die as a product of the review? Because I've had that happen in a game review.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay. All right. It was
Yes.
just a coincidence.
No, his PS5 was
Sometimes,
just
man,
it wasn't feeling good. It just gave up on life. You know, it
we're
happens.
talking about it. Sometimes
Consumer electronics, folks.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing a game that is it intended to be sold to a regular consumer, you're rolling the dice sometimes. I've had my Switch got bricked, as I mentioned, playing Cooking Mama Cookstar. I got a friend that got some malware installed on his PC and ruined his PC over a game review. It happens, guys. It's dangerous out there. It's the Wild West.
They want him to have a Pro.
Yeah, his PS5
you
saw
know
the
what to
Pro
do.
coming, and he's just like, no, I'm going to.
Good thing your employer at Seasoned Gaming provides PS5 Pros to all of their top reviewers. I think that's really stand up of them.
This is news to Ains.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be.
We'll talk about that offline, Alex.
I'm just saying.
Alex.
Seems fair. Fair is fair, guys. That's what I think.
Katie with the member comment.
Writing checks for other people.
Got to do it, man. Got to stand up for my fellow freelancers.
If IGN is not giving out PS5 Pros, Season Gaming is not giving out PS5 Pros.
We don't give PS5 Pros, but we do give you enough money in a review that you could buy a PS5 Pro for every review you do. That's pretty good. All right. Katie Cotton, member for 26 months. Dr. Pepper Zero is different than Diet Dr. P and is much better. Source, my super taster daughter. Switched from regular to zero due to diabetes and family.
That's good to know, because I think the Diet Dr. Pepper is the worst thing ever put in a can. So
come on.
I would like to submit that Hogue is and I think you guys should all remember this when we get into the Dragon Age discussion. Hogue loves hyperbole. He loves it. He loves it. He loves to say the craziest shit you've ever seen. Obviously, Diet Dr. Pepper is not the worst thing put into a can.
I'm not sure it's so obvious.
People urinate in cans. There's a candy corn flavored soda that's absolutely horrible,
which is a Dr. Pepper.
No. All I'm saying is just keep this in mind when we move forward, because he's an unreliable source of information. It's why nobody will publish his reviews. Let's move on.
Also, because I don't write them. But what are you
I don't
going to do
know about that. I mean, chicken or the egg? Chicken or the egg? That's what I say.
I will humbly submit Bop Ice. You remember when Bud Ice was a thing years ago? The cheap beer from Bud. You remember that?
Not a drinker, so not really.
Not a drink. Oh, never mind. Then this is going to go over like a lead balloon. Yeah. So I remember going to a party one time, and like they had cases of this beer, which you thought was Bud Ice, and it literally said Bop Ice on it, and it had a fake penguin. You know, like remember the penguin from the Bud Ice? Yeah, it had a fake penguin on the can, and I'm like, what the hell are we drinking, and where did this come from? So I'll humbly submit that as the worst thing I've ever had out of a can. Jury.
Midnight Dreary offers a $10 super chat to write. Longtime lover of Dragon Age, struggling with Veilguard. Its tone and whimsy remind me more of Hogwarts Legacy. Don't hate it, and we'll finish it, but keep forgetting what I'm playing. It's fair.
Yeah, we'll get to it. I think that's fair too. Yeah, I so want to talk about it. We'll get to it shortly, but yes, we may pull some of these super chats back up as reference. So thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you. Okay. Oh, sorry, forgot to get the Tides picks, of course, which shockingly, we actually all look pretty, this is us in the 80s or 90s gaming. I like it.
Why am I?
We're stoked about playing.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
very
ginger
happy.
Again. Why am I a ginger? This is
at least your thumbs are near the buttons.
That's true. You guys are holding those controllers a little insane.
I just noticed the thumbsticks are like big buttons. They're not actually thumbsticks.
Hey.
Also, we're in the 80s playing a PS4 controller, it looks like. It looks like PS4 to me.
We are clearly playing it in the 2000s, and we have not upgraded our TV in a while.
Yeah,
I see.
I also like that Hogue has controllers flying at his head from different angles. Sometimes
that's just my thought process. Those are just thought bubbles. Yeah. Understood. I'm thinking.
No, he has a concussion, and they're floating around his head like Tweety birds. Good times. This is nice.
Yeah, it's good. Hogue, or Travis, always a ginger. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and no tie, which really, guys, I was wearing ties in the 80s. Okay, actually, I wasn't born in the 80s, but I would have been wearing ties. It would have been more socially acceptable for me to wear ties in the 80s. Now I'm a pariah, especially in San Francisco.
Okay, so you didn't live in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we don't have to take your
But
understanding
I've
of
seen
what
their
was socially
videos.
acceptable
I've
in the
seen their
80s.
videos. People wore
Correct.
ties, and they said things like "right on." I saw it in a movie.
Was it a Netflix movie?
No, it was an 80s movie.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything
moving on.
featuring John Cryer or Amanda Peterson is not an accurate reflection of
Okay.
schooling in the 1980s.
I'm not talking about schooling. I'm talking about the folks on the street. They wore ties,
Folks.
bro. They wore ties. Now they don't. Now they wear
I like the
blazers and a
folks.
t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of the thing. Yeah.
It's a different era.
Yeah.
California
Yeah.
killed fashion. I will take the blame for that. That was our fault.
All right. Why don't we get into what we're playing? Because we got a lot of games to talk about. So I want to hand it to you, Ho, because we talked about it last week, but you were sick. You couldn't offer your thoughts. I haven't played it. So give us your couple minute spiel on the Lake House direct from the Hoag's mouth, if you will.
Sure. Well, I have complete control over the Hoag's mouth situation. So, yes, the Lake House is the second and final DLC to Alan Wake 2, my game of the year last year. And generally speaking, it's fantastic. It's a short little kind of story snippet that happens simultaneous to the activities of Alan Wake 2 with a different character in a different place. But it is both the survival horror craziness of Alan Wake 2 and kind of the meta contextual conversation about what is art and what is art versus content as told to you by Remedy, which is one of my favorite storytellers in gaming. And so overall, it's probably one of my favorite DLCs ever. And I would recommend it to everybody that's interested in any of the things that they see in Alan Wake 2.
Fair enough.
I got to play that one.
Yeah, I definitely got to get back to it at some point. But I wanted to hear from you directly.
Game, right?
Shut up. We're not even talking about that right now.
I was not prepared for Sam Lake and Remedy to go on a plot tangent about what large language models and AI mean for the creation of art. And that's all in the Lake House.
Now I really want to play it more.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I saved that DLC and the first one to play together because they're both short and it's going to take me a while to get back into that type of game. So, both.
One thing is that they've got it so you can access them from the main menu, but they've also placed them in the world of the main game in the place where they make sense. So you can go through and play Alan Wake 2. The final draft probably is what you would play at this point, and go and interact with those expansions.
That's cool
when it makes sense.
Yeah, probably not how I'll play it since I'm done with the campaign, but maybe Ains. Maybe you'll get to play through.
Yeah, it might be a good way for me to go. Yeah.
Did you play Final Draft, Travis?
Is Final Draft the first expansion?
Final Draft is like the new game plus of Alan Wake 2.
Oh no, I did not.
Yeah, it changes a couple plot elements. It has some new
cool.
themes because of what you find out during the course of Alan Wake 2.
The Spiral.
The Spiral. Yes.
Yeah, very cool.
No
we'll leave it at that.
Here. No spoilers here. Yeah.
The Spiral,
cool.
I don't think is
a Spiral's a hell of a spoiler. Everybody knows what that means. It literally is one of those things that doesn't make sense if you
Yeah, but highly recommended. Really love what they've done with it. Honestly, I was actually emotional at the end of the Lake House in a way that I'm not usually for these projects, where it feels like you get to the end of that and you're like, this was a thing. This was something big and a moment in time in gaming, and it's a little sad that it's over. So I'm looking forward to what Remedy hits us with next, at least after Firebreak. But we don't have to talk about that right now.
I saw.
He's so soft now.
I was going through news, for the show and everything, and I saw that Remedy had announced that Alan Wake 2 is still selling well. Lake House might have helped that, right? But still selling well, and that they have almost recouped all of their development on the game, which is kind of sad. You have to say almost. They're still not there, but if it continues to sell well, hopefully they see a profit on that.
Well, one thing I would say about those kinds of reports, and this in the real world, Ains, is that it's difficult to say exactly how they are accounting for the investment that they put into a given game. We know that Alan Wake 2 was in large part funded by Epic. We see that on the front screens of Alan Wake 2. We saw it from the exclusivity they had with the Epic Game Store for a short time. And so we don't know exactly how much of that needs to be accounted for when they say that their game is profitable. It sounded to me like they were saying they weren't hitting royalty numbers back yet, which for folks that don't know, in general, a publishing deal like the one that appears to have happened with Alan Wake 2 is that they will front you all this money to make sure you can pay people and help them keep their lights on. And then you go and sell it. And then all that money goes to the publisher until you hit a return on their investment. And then you start splitting the money from there. So it sounds like they haven't hit that amount yet. But that also goes to the story of why Remedy is self-publishing things like Firebreak, and why they got into a big deal with Annapurna Pictures is to not have this kind of, it's not debt really, but it's a kind of debt concept that hangs over your head until you can start to make the big bucks. So Remedy's moving in a different direction, and that all makes sense from everything that they reported on. But it's not, some people took that kind of quote out of context and reported it as, they're not making money yet. And no, they made the money first. They haven't made the extra money yet. And to me, that's a distinction, and Remedy is not in any existential danger at this point.
Yes, very true. Yeah, that's fair. I want to quickly mention Fear the Spotlight. I've mentioned this one before. I played it this summer. It's a small horror game. It's the first of the Blumhouse horror games that have been published. So Ray reviewed this for us. Put the review up this week. It is he said it's about 4 to 6 hours, give or take. It's a smaller experience. If you don't remember this one, it is. It looks like a PlayStation 1 game, kind of early 3D, if you will. I really enjoyed my little vertical slice or whatever you want to call it over the summer, and he really enjoyed it. He gave it an 8. He said it's really fun. There's a lot of kind of nostalgia in it. It's simple, but it's fun, well designed, and you can check that review out on the site if you want to.
It's good.
See more of it. Yeah.
No, it's good, and it does feel like even when you play it, that Blumhouse has added a certain amount of polish, that they put in some money and some expertise from their gaming side to help it get a little bit further than most indies. Right. Like it's still a PlayStation 1 dynamic. It's still kind of built for the indie space, but it does feel like it has an extra layer of polish on it. I highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in it. It is primarily a kind of stealth avoiding danger type of game. It literally is Fear the Spotlight. You're going to have lights and you're going to avoid them. But it's a nice little slice of horror.
Yeah. It's exactly. Well said. So, definitely check that out. I'd encourage you checking out the review and maybe giving it a look. Obviously, with Blumhouse taking that step with their horror games, it's good to support that kind of stuff too, at least in my opinion. The only other kind of, while we're on the horror theme, I'll just quickly mention I have been playing Silent Hill 2 with my wife, just kind of getting her. I'm letting her play and kind of go through it. We played for a little while last night, so we're a few hours into it. Really liking it. It's actually quite impressive so far. We haven't even really got into what I would call the meat and potatoes of the experience yet, and where it really goes crazy. But going through the apartments, it's really the
apartments are long, right? Like
they are, and because there's 2 sets of them too, and it's
I really like Silent Hill 2. I think they've done an amazing job with like the melee, which is what I was worried about. It really feels visceral in a way that's cool.
Feels chunky.
Yeah, feels chunky. That's good. And the levels are well designed, and the little loops of puzzle solving are good, but they are hefty. They are long. Yeah,
she's like, "Are we done with these apartments yet?" I was like, part of it is because it is too long. Part of it is because she's moving really slow, and we keep doubling back on things. But and I think they use it in that game, as you know, right? It's like you're in the apartments and you're in the other apartments. Is kind of that transition into Silent Hill space. But anyway, been impressed so far. Really enjoying that. Obviously, I think I don't really need to say much else about Silent Hill 2. If you're into horror, you're obviously familiar with that one. So
it's a good one.
Yeah. Either of you play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta?
I have not.
Yeah. I have friends who are in it who have been texting me this week like, "Oh shit." Just losing.
Yeah. Elu in our chat here, Armad, is he's the Monster Hunter fanatic, and we have a couple of them at SG. And I will say I haven't played it yet. I did install it. I just haven't gotten to it, and playing Dragon Age as well. But everyone I talk to, including the guys at SG, the people who I know are Monster, I have not seen anyone say a negative thing yet. This seems to be like the hyped game for them for next year. They are absolutely adoring this. They can't get enough of it. And I mean, we already talked about it here. We know that this is going to be one of the biggest games next year without a doubt, right? But it feels like they're really going to crush this one. This one could be a monster. No pun intended.
Did you guys talk at all about your experiences with Blop 6 last week?
We did. I do want to talk a little more about that as well. Yeah, but
I've been pleasantly surprised by how much I'm enjoying aspects of that package.
Well, we can jump to that. If the three of us haven't played Wilds, we can't really say much else. I would just say I think if you like Monster Hunter, you're obviously probably already playing this. But if you're new to Monster Hunter or hadn't traditionally liked it like me, maybe give this one a look. The beta's out there. Try it because it feels like this one is going to kind of hit for even people who haven't liked it previously. So.
Yeah, the person I was talking to most about this is a game developer himself, and he was talking about how the Monster Hunter worlds broke through kind of the glass for like the core audience where people were actually noticing it, and this does that, and then also just makes it like so much more polished and palatable for people that like aren't from that world. And he thinks it's going to be the biggest game next year, assuming that GTA 6 doesn't come out, which I kind of think it won't. And so, yeah, I think this is going to be huge, and I'm super excited because Worlds was definitely the one that I most connected with, and I think this is going to be the one that like really gets me. So I'm very excited for it.
I think it is going to be huge. I have to be honest. I am unlikely to engage with it at a high level. Like I might get it, I might play it a little bit, but I am not going to be into the 300 hours.
Yeah.
Hunting for a specific bone so I can make the bow in a specific way kind of guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of curious, because I can get myself into those games where that's all my focus will be. But as we've talked about, Monster Hunter has never done that for me before. I hope that Wilds does. All jokes aside, as much as I joke about Monster Hunter, I think it would be cool to really get into it. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, he said he also added that like it should earn the prestige of like the best games out there, but it doesn't because it's a game about smashing monsters. That was basically his analysis. He's like, if this were about any other topic or had any sort of level of like prestige that people could attach to, it would be a much bigger game. But I'm okay with the game about smashing monsters.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've talked about this here too. It feels like the games that get that prestige, right, seem to be kind of narrative heavy. There's certain types of experiences, right? And Monster Hunter doesn't seem to kind of fit that mold, which is fine. It doesn't mean won't be a favorite among, millions or even tens of millions of people.
Yeah. Play the games you love. Jeff Keighley does not determine what things you like.
Right.
And he does for me. He texts me all the time. He's real annoying about it. It's frustrating.
I'll be honest. A big draw for me is if it's not like the 10 other best games out there, because you get a little exhausted playing the same formula or types of games over and over again, and those being hailed as the best games. And I like that Monster Hunter is weird and different, and it borrows kind of like aspects from different genres, but it's kind of its own thing. I think that's super cool. Yeah. And it's a live service game, so you can play it for a million years.
It's pretty clear they're going to support that one for a while. Yeah, I mean, it's the foundation of that game is gigantic. So and it's just building upon what Worlds did. Yeah, no doubt. You want to talk about Black Ops 6? So yeah, I did talk a little bit last week, Hogue. I was talking mostly from a multiplayer perspective because that's where I live. I've basically worn myself out on multiplayer already after a week. Call of Duty just does that for me. It's like I get my fill and I'm like, all right, I'm good. But I'll quickly mention, because I think you probably want to talk about campaign.
I just wanted to say that I thought it was well done. It reminds me of almost something like a GoldenEye from back in the day, with the way that the missions are designed. Now the aesthetic, the way they tell their story is a little bit more kind of what I think of as like late 90s, early 2000s, jump cuts, lots of video screens, very Jungle Strike or Nuclear Strike kind of approach to telling a story.
God, I love those games.
I do too. I miss those. EA, bring back the Strike series. Those were great. You got it right there. You can even make it some kind of Diablo 4 live service thing. I got all these ideas.
Just do something. You don't need to do old stuff.
Did you play Nuclear Strike? Did you play those games, Travis?
I don't know. That might have been before his era. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I recommend them, and I just wanted to say that I have not enjoyed Call of Duty campaigns for a long time, and this one I think is very strong. I've not gotten to the end of it, so I can't speak to the plot wrapping up in a satisfying way.
I haven't got past downloading it. I really need to play it.
You have to get past that step to comment on it, I think.
Yeah. At least download it. Then you can review it. You know what I mean? You're good. You can say you have it
Everybody's saying
installed.
it's good. They're saying it's good. I just,
No, everyone I've talked to, Alex's review's out, by the way. So Alex did a full package review. So he really dove in, finished campaign, zombies, etc.
Yeah.
So that review's out. He really enjoyed the whole thing. Yeah, everyone I talked to who's like a Call of Duty person really likes the campaign. And then I played hours of zombies this week. In fact, I did one round, which I think we lasted almost 3 hours in a single round, and it was kind of comical, really. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. It's really well done. If you like zombies, like just the 4-player co-op, the kind of figuring things out on the map, the little secrets, unlocking stuff, and just how chaotic it gets, later in the round is it's really well done. So I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but I think Treyarch having the full development cycle to do Black Ops 6, what we would call properly, has really benefited them. Anyone I talk to who's kind of in that realm thinks that this is the best Call of Duty's been in quite a few years. So
that's my impression. Yeah,
really good.
I just wasn't here last week. I wanted to mention it,
and it seems that they're doing just fine on Game Pass, which is cool.
Yeah, I was talking. I think I mentioned last week I was talking to Matt Piscatella. He was already kind of looking at some of that data for MPD and stuff. So going to be interesting to see over the next few weeks how that shakes out. But it looks like it's done quite well. Yeah.
Call of Duty is pretty popular, folks.
Yeah, people like Call of Duty. Apparently, it sells a few copies every year. All right. So what else we got before I want to hold Dragon Age for our main topic really to get into. So what else you want to touch on game wise before we get over there?
Well, I wasn't here last week, so I got a ton.
All right.
Time for
Pace yourself now. Yeah.
It is. Do you have a
All right, hit us with Hoax Notes.
Hoax Notes. Hoax Notes. Now it's time for Hoax Notes.
I have had so much fun playing RPGs this past couple of weeks.
Okay.
And I have so many to talk to you about because it's just such a wonderful time to be an RPG gamer, right?
If you talk too long, I will bloat goat you.
What? You're gonna what?
If you talk too long, I'm gonna bloat goat you. So the warning is there.
You don't have to bloat goat me.
I gotta say, Ains, that threat sounds very sexual. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. You talk too long, I'm gonna bloat goat you.
Well, Travis. So before I get too caught off track by this line of conversation, I want to mention an indie game that is a card battling, time management, resource management, dating sim called Potionomics that I really
did see this one.
It has a high production value. It is exactly the kind of game that I like to discover and find for myself. And if you're interested at all in running a potion store in a kind of medieval land and then having conversations with people using something like the Griffland's card battling system, combining that with time resources and winning potion competitions in order to pay off your debt to the man, this game is for you. But it is a little bit on the higher priced end of indie games. I think it's $30. But it is excellent. I really enjoy it. It is perhaps a little bit more strenuous in terms of difficulty than you might assume from its graphics or its kind of cozy game setup and description. It really does require you to manage that time pretty succinctly, pretty well, pretty efficiently. And I do enjoy it a lot. It's not for everybody, obviously. But I do think it's for like Travis and Dee. It's the kind of thing that I think they would
Dee's
like.
been playing it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's that's one that's probably on the back burner until we finish Metaphor. We're number 9 in the Eyes of the King right now, so we got to do that a little bit more. But this is definitely one that she's gonna play a ton of eventually.
For the record,
for some reason, I thought it was on Game Pass, but it doesn't look to be.
No, I think I had to buy it on Xbox for her.
Okay, all right, cool though, very cool. I had seen that one, I just didn't know what it was about. Now I know.
Really like
now
it.
I know I won't be buying it. So
really like it. Don't really recommend it on the Switch. It doesn't really come together. Anything with that level of three-dimensional graphics that isn't made by Nintendo, I don't recommend on the Switch. But I do recommend trying it out because it's good. And I think we already talked about
Crushing Debt, by the way. huge, one of the major cornerstones of the cozy genre, really.
It is.
Yeah.
He's not lying.
Yeah.
And Potionomics in and of itself makes certain commentary about being in debt and trying to pay it off and these kinds of things, which are also kind of normal in the indie space, where you really feel for the indie game developer. It's like, okay, so you probably like mortgage your house a second time for this dream. Good luck. Yeah. Hope you sell some Potionomics. But you can really feel it when the speeches come out about the character trying to make money and get out of debt. You're like, yeah, okay, you're just talking to me right now. I get it, indie developer.
Have you guys heard of socialism? That's just the dialogue.
But all right, carry on, sir.
Potionomics, I really like. And like I said, I promised you really good RPGs. We're going to talk about an RPG that I've been playing later. But the two that I did not hear mentioned enough on the internet, and I don't know whether you guys talked about it last week because I was really not with it while your show was on last week. I was kind of dozing and trying to get over my sickness. But my favorite RPG of the last couple weeks is Square Enix's remake of Romancing Saga 2. So if you don't know this one, guys, this is Romancing Saga 2 was an old pixel game, just like a Final Fantasy 6 or 4 or something like that. It's been remade in 3 dimensions. It's been kind of rethought with how the battle system works and quality of life and whatnot. But the Saga series in general is all about trying to figure out how to tell an open-ended story where the player gets to decide how it's going to progress. In this case, you're building a kingdom up over multiple generations. You're deciding how to answer the problems that the kingdom has and figuring out what characters you're going to grow into their roles as the king's retinue or the emperor's retinue in this particular game. And it is wide open. It feels like a modern design. But it is the realization of all of the things, in my opinion, that the Saga series has tried to do in the past and hasn't been able to fully successfully do, right? The Saga series for Square Enix has always been kind of experimental, trying to figure out how to build one of these open-ended, open-world kind of stories with Final Fantasy aesthetics, but not quite knowing how to do that in a way that feels satisfying. This is their best attempt so far, and I like the Saga series. I didn't really like it when it first came out, but I talked about Emerald Beyond this year. I've talked about, I think, the Crimson one that I can't remember the name of. They're just random words, like Square Enix, you know. But this one is Romancing Saga 2. I want to say The Revenge of the Seven. I highly recommend it. Super addictive. They've really locked down the battle system in a way that has not been realized before in the Saga series. Graphics are nice. The graphics remind me a lot of the Visions of Mana that we saw also released this year. But I highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in any of the things that I've just described because it's really handled well, and it's very, very different than something like Metaphor, right? Metaphor is the other RPG I've been playing a lot of, and it is wonderful. Love Metaphor. Really interesting writing, really interesting world, really well-done characters, but it is very linear and focused. It's very much a JRPG, right? These characters are their characters. You have to hit these certain points. Yes, you get certain choices on any given day on the calendar in Metaphor, but it's very much going in a specific direction. You're going to get the end that the developers have decided for you. And Romancing Saga 2 is very, very different from that. And I really, really like it. I really want people to check it out. The other thing I wanted to mention, I want to make sure I mention here in Hoag's Notes, is that one of my favorite series of all time had a new entry in this 2-week window. I adore Ys. I've talked about books 1 and 2 as one of the formative games of my youth. Ys 10 Nordics, or At All Explores Viking Land. It came out this last couple of weeks, and it is not as inviting as Ys 8 or even Ys 9. It has kind of a stumbling start and is a little bit bland to begin with, but its combat is probably the best Ys has been in a while, and there are islands to explore and a pirate ship to steer. Folks, At All gets a pirate ship. Come on.
Bloat Goat's coming. The Bloat Goat's going to be on that ship.
I'm allowed to talk. I'm a co-host of this show. Ys 10, Romancing Saga 2, Metaphor. You don't need any more RPGs, folks. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. That's Hoag's Notes.
Well, RPG definition is stretching widely among the games we're talking about today. But Metaphor, I talked a little bit about Metaphor last week, Hoag, and a lot of people I follow are really into JRPGs, and a lot of people I follow adore Metaphor. And I really like it, but I'm finding the same issues I have with a lot of other JRPGs, which is kind of what you said. It's like, it can be very linear at times. There's a lot of talking, right? And just reading the prompts because it's not fully voiced over. So you're just reading a lot. Like I told Travis last week, I had one section where I'm about 20 hours in. And I had one section where I had one battle in a span of 30 minutes of just reading. Running. And I'm just like,
And this is
the combat and the
like
dialogue.
where the game is, right? Like battling combat in general in a JRPG, that's not the game for most people. That's the thing you get through in order for there to be some kind of conflict or adversarial point to get to the next part of the story and to make it not a visual novel. But the Persona series, the Metaphor game, they can go for long periods of time where you're just talking at dinner, or you're just figuring out what to do that day to most efficiently increase the powers of your party, and you're not battling. My biggest issue with Persona 5 and Metaphor is probably that they're too kind of bifurcated. You have huge sections where you're just talking, and then huge sections where you're just fighting.
Yes.
And
I agree with you.
Probably my biggest issue there. My second biggest issue is Metaphor is super hard to play when you're sick, right? So like, I actually resented it a little bit last week because when you're sick, when your head is foggy, like you have all this time, I can't do work clearly. I can't do various other things I want to do. I'm going to sit in front of my PlayStation 5. I want to play a game. And Metaphor is way, way, way too chunky. It's way too mathematical. It's way too difficult to strategize around when your brain isn't fully working. So it was not a good thing to try to play as kind of a relaxation, bring it down a notch type of game. But I do love Metaphor.
It's funny because Dee was also sick last week for maybe 36 hours. She was like completely bedridden, and all she did was play Metaphor. So her experience is obviously very different.
I don't even necessarily mind the kind of exposition that you get in a lot of ways with these games, but when it feels like it can drone on at times, you know what I mean? Like they're just saying the same things over and over over again. And it's just like
very bloated.
Move forward. Like I got it. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't know.
I have that problem with so many JRPGs though. Yeah, that the writing can be a little brutal. But yeah, I generally agree that like the big problem is you spend so much time in combat and then so much time away from combat, and then you're just like it makes you yearn for, oh God, can we please just be done with this dungeon? And then you're done with the dungeon, and then like 5 hours later, you're like, God, can we please be back in the dungeon? And you're never happy with where you are, except for like the first 20 minutes of every new section. So, but that's like, dude, I have that problem with the modern Persona games. Like, there's just that's kind of just their style. Does not excuse it, but yeah, it is a common problem.
And some people love it, right? Not everyone,
really
but most people I talk to.
Like I can acknowledge that it has these big sections where you're not fighting and big sections where you are. But the game really works for me on a lot of axes. And I think that some of the story is not like what I would like it to be. It's a very kind of Pokemon anime election type conversation. You are aimed at 20 hours. I can't say exactly where you are in the game, but it strikes me that you're pretty early days in Metaphor, honestly.
Which scares me.
I mean, it goes for a long, long time. But I love like the fairy tale aspects. I love the narrator when you come up to a new area. I could use hearing the day of the California presidential primary a little bit less, which is a 24 reference, Travis. I don't know. That might be before you were born. But
what was the reference? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
I said the day of the California presidential primary. For people that watch the first season of 24, Kiefer Sutherland starts each episode by saying it's between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. on the day of the California presidential primary. So you just wound up saying that in your head a lot because he doesn't say that in any other seasons. And in this case, for Metaphor, like, what is the phrase? It's like the day of the king draws nearer.
The day of
whatever.
the king draws nearer. Yeah, and then it's the prince. And it's good.
It's like you're killing me, man. I don't want to hear it anymore. Yeah. Also, you have a half British accent for the first part of that sentence, and then you say nearer in like Midwestern American, and it really confuses me.
My relationship with 24 was that I learned about it in college.
I didn't never watch a single
film class. I took film classes, and they were like, "We're going to watch a lot of episodes of 24."
Well, as long as I'm admitting to liking things, I love East.
Editing.
I love 24. 24 is not objectively good television, but I love 24. So now you know.
I don't know. I think it's pretty strong. At least they know what they're doing. I mean,
moment to moment.
We studied it.
24 is that any given episode and any given scene has a good level of suspense, a good level of tension, certainly for television and certainly for television of that era.
Yeah.
But when you break down what happens in any given season of 24, it doesn't make a lick of sense. Like it is just an absolute dream logic advancement of plot. But in any given moment, at that level of detail where you're watching it that hour, that week, it's good.
Yeah.
I've never watched
24. Googleman 81 says it's either 24 or Sopranos. Yeah, literally. Those are the two shows we looked at. And Frasier. That was a show we looked at a lot too for sitcoms. So good times.
All right. Let's see here. Okay. So let me get this member comment from Nissa while we're talking about game releases.
Nissa Hauer, member for 16 months, writes Dreamlight Valley DLC November 20th. So excited. Yeah, I'll play that.
2 weeks. Yeah.
I'll buy that for $1.
I think it'll ask for more.
Well, I'll buy it for $1.
I'll give you $1. That's all you're going to get. Yeah. Nissa, thank you. I hope it's good. All right. So we've got another super chat too. I'm saving a couple super chats around Dragon Age as we go ahead and get into Dragon Age. So let's do that. So we'll set the table obviously here. It goes without saying, we've talked about Dragon Age a lot. First Dragon Age in nearly 10 years, right? Since Inquisition, or right about that. First BioWare game in a very long time as well. And here we are. So first I would like to say, as we talk about this, obviously the game came out Thursday. It's only been 3 days, not even 3 days, right, since this. So I think from the people I've talked to who have reviewed this game, we're still a bit early, I would say. So how much have you guys played this game so far?
I have about 15 hours in Dragon Age.
Okay. Damn, Hogue.
I play video games, Haynes.
So you've averaged 5 hours a day in 3 days of one game. Damn, I thought I played a lot. I'm at 10. Wow.
I think when I came upstairs to check on when the show was starting, I looked at it and it was 14 and 45 or so. So just under 15 hours for me. Okay, cool.
I actually don't know. I think 3 or 4, maybe.
No, you're still in the throes. Okay. All right. So I don't really know where to start. I'll start with kind of like, I would say I'll start with initial thoughts. So my initial thoughts, and you guys obviously jump in. Initial thoughts were the first few hours, I would say I wasn't really kind of vibing with it at all. I think that the art style is obviously going to be a personal thing, whether you like it or not. I will say that I was impressed. I'm really impressed with some of the cinematics, like the way the characters actually kind of move and talk and everything. The lip sync's a little off, but like the actual animations of the characters and stuff in the scenes, I think is really strong. But it's very linear early on, very linear. And I really just wasn't too interested. It wasn't grabbing me. So I don't think it makes a great first impression. Whether or not you're looking for diehard old school Dragon Age or new game, I don't think it makes a great first impression. Because the other thing I've heard in speaking to reviewers and some other people who played this game is especially if you don't know Dragon Age, which given this is a long time later than the other Dragon Age games, I think new players probably don't.
How about old players? Let's talk about the fact that they don't have any onboarding at all. For various characters or what actually happened in the past. It's like, okay, I played Inquisition. I know I did. But yes, I can have like a little ringing bell that I think I recognize that thing. But you are operating under the premise that you sold us Inquisition 1 or 2 years ago, or maybe 3 or 4. And that is not the case, BioWare. Come on, help me out. I want to meet you where you live.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, I have no idea what any of the characters are. I'll be honest. I have none. I mean, I remember them, right? But I will tell
you this. No spoilers. This is not a spoiler cast, but there are going to be cameos. There are cameos throughout. And I recognize the name and I recognize like their attitude. And it's like, I don't 100% remember where I left you off. And they will not help. They're just like,
funny.
What, you know this guy? You know this guy? It's like,
Mhm.
yeah,
I think I do know that guy though.
kinda.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Maybe it's because I just watched Dee play through like most of them. She didn't finish them, but she was it's kind of fresh in my mind. So I was like, oh yeah, Varric. Everybody
I feel
knows
like
him.
Ellie in those Apple Intelligence commercials. I need the Apple Intelligence stuff. Who's this guy again? What's his story?
I think, and they put a lot, as you've likely seen, right? They put a lot, and it expands pretty quickly in the lore section, the menu where you can read through all these different kind of settings and environments and characters. So there's a lot there if you want to take it in, but definitely agree. Like from a gameplay perspective, I'm like, well, why is this person important? I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I read the codex a lot. Now, I think BioWare does a great job in their codex of having kind of entries that are from the world. They're written by a character in the world from the past. And in my opinion, their best writing is in that codex, but it's not the best way to onboard people. What BioWare does in this game is say, we've got all these different categories of codex entries. Most of them are not going to be filled because you're going to get them as you play the game. One, the world of Thedos is going to be completely filled. We're going to give you 28 entries, not as an encyclopedia of like, this is what this place is, this is what this place is, this is what this faction does. We're going to do it as if they were letters from a Ken Burns documentary, kind of vaguely informing you of what this faction is or what this place is, which is great. It's really good writing. Good job, BioWare. But oh my God, I'm like, oh yeah, I know Ferelden. I remember that. That's Origins. And like all these various other things where it's like, I feel like I'm having a cognitive test from my stroke every single time I play this game.
I mean, to be fair, that's like a criticism you could also apply to lots of other RPGs, including Baldur's Gate 3. I think Baldur's Gate 3 really makes a lot of assumptions about what you know about that world. And there's a ton in the Forgotten Realms and that you have to know and different rules and logics. And they kind of just assume you know D&D a lot. So I think it's kind of common as games have gotten more sequel driven and more the kind of their audiences are kind of bought into it. It's like starting in the middle of the MCU where it's like, all right, you've seen 18 movies already. We kind of assume.
I think you can assume that you have some notions of D&D. It's in movies and televisions and things. Maybe that's equally haughty. I don't feel it that way. For me, I'm a big fan of Dragon Age. Like, I've played these games, but it's an eon since the last one. There haven't been things that have kept that up since then. And I want to engage with this thing. And I find myself a little bit confused as to where things are. You don't start the game with a world map. So you don't have notions of the geography of what we're even talking about or where you find yourself. And most of the travel in this game is done by fast travel, right? So one of the complaints about Starfield is, of course, the fast travel kind of setup. This has that issue, which is that all of these areas are very clearly video game levels that are separate. And I can talk about those areas a little bit at some point soon, but for the most part, you aren't going to get a notion of where these things are, right? It's the opposite of Metaphor, where to travel across the world in Metaphor, you have to account for going 4 or 5 days or however many days it's going to take you. And you're going to get a lot of narrative. You're going to get a lot of talking points. You're going to get a lot of things that bore Ains or Travis or me on any given day. But it's going to make you feel like this is actually 1,000 miles south or west. And it's going to take you this moment in time. And then you are in fast travel. And then you can play the video game like a video game. In this one, jump into the mirror, find out where you go. And now that new place has a new aesthetic and a new graphical direction. But it's not really a world. It almost feels like Mass Effect or Star Wars in that you're going to a different planet, you're going to a different culture, and that's just really how this is all operating. It's not a world, and
it's a hub and spoke type of design. So you're at the lighthouse, right? And then to your point, you go through a mirror and you're in a different area, which is a completely different aesthetic. And the comparison that at first I read it and I was like, I don't know if I see that, but the more I play it, the more I see it. I saw someone on Blue Sky say this is literally like Dragon Age God of War 2018. And God of War. Yeah, the more I play it, I'm like, that's actually really apt because to Hoag's point, it is. You have the lighthouse, your home thing, and then you go through a mirror and you have quests in different regions and stuff. But to do that, you're going through the mirror, and then even sometimes within the region, you're doing the little fast travel at the crossroads and stuff, right? But it is very sectioned off like that, and I don't necessarily mind it. I do, once you get a little further in past the several hour mark, I'd say, Hoag, probably, right? Like, and you get to the crossroads and like the areas do get a little bigger. There's kind of little things you can find and hunt for, but it's definitely a different experience than Definitely Inquisition. Never mind other RPGs.
Yeah, and I don't
So
want to
that-
cut you off, Ains, but if I could offer just early impressions before we get into
Sure.
some more detail, I would like to say I am enjoying Veilguard more than Inquisition. Like straight up. Remember that statement when we get into some of the more detail, folks. But I am liking this game more than Inquisition. And it's a very different game, right? Like Inquisition was a game that was BioWare trying to do open world sections. And you get all those jokes on the internet about the hinterlands because they didn't quite know exactly how much to put in any given area. And people were getting stuck, especially completionists early on in Inquisition. This is the almost exact opposite of that approach. Like every area, even if it feels like it should be relatively open world, like a city or like a town, is these kind of video game levels that are looping around each other in a very, to my mind, like a Dark Souls-y kind of way, where you open up the ladder to get to this area a little bit faster the next time, and you open up this door to do that. And they don't feel real in any tangible way. I think folks that watch the show a lot might remember that I said about Outlaws that one of the problems I had with their level design was that the premise behind those levels, which was a stealth game, seemed to be that they were real. Like, how would this look? Where would the security room be? Where would we put a reactor core? That kind of thing in that context. And I really think they lost some actual level design elements in that because you don't actually want a video game level to be real, especially a stealth one. This is the opposite of that. This is like, okay, how can we make even traversing a city kind of gamey? Where are we going to put ladders to find? Where are we going to put things to climb up? And you're going to be confused about where you are. You're not going to be able to keep kind of a notion of how this city actually works, where you're walking or where you need to go. And so you better put a mission tracker on, because only then are we going to put little diamonds around as to which alley you should go down and which thing you should slide down in order to move forward northwest, because you're going to have to actually circle around a little bit to figure out how you're going to get out in that direction. I really like how this feels in a certain respect, which is to say that it gives you this kind of feeling that you're in an actual cloistered city and you're seeing things all over the place. They've got people everywhere. They've got good animations everywhere. I really don't like how it feels in terms of feeling like I'm actually in a world, like I'm actually role-playing in a game. So I have complicated feelings about this. I think the actual level design makes everything feel very small, feel very, very video gamey in a way that I don't really appreciate. I don't want Inquisition. I didn't like that. Okay, so I understand how you got this direction, BioWare. This is too far the other way. Maybe we can come to a compromise of some kind. But I do like this game more than Inquisition. I think that the graphics are some of the best I've ever seen in a fantasy game. We can talk about the character designs a little bit later. I am actually talking about the kind of materials look, the lighting,
It's very impressive.
The awe and wonder that they managed to put out in the scope of the background, the skyboxes and more in this game. I find myself visually pleased, aesthetically pleased when I put this game on. And I really enjoy that. That's what I want out of a piece of art, is I want to be pleased by what I'm seeing. And it is very, very pretty. People that aren't acknowledging that, I think, are wrong. I think they're mostly taken up with how the characters look, which they do look like Pixar Fortnite Frozen 2 characters a lot of the time. They have like kind of heroic proportions, big bobbleheads, wide chests. But I find myself enjoying how this game looks very, very much. And reasonable minds can differ on that, obviously purely subjective. But I think that this game, especially the environments, the materials, are very, very pretty. And I wanted to say that as part of this, because I do have some more significant critiques of this game as we go on.
Go, Travis.
Yeah. So I'm obviously pretty early, but my impressions so far, and just based on the conversations I've had to people and the reviews I've read, is that this is always going to be divisive because it's a departure from what the series did. In my mind, I'm okay with that in Dragon Age, because I think every single game in the Dragon Age franchise has been a departure of the game.
That's what I was going to say. They're all different.
Yeah. We basically have 4 different Dragon Age games that have very little in common in terms of how they play, right? We've seen it as like an OOOG, like BioWare
Western
RPG. Yeah.
Origins is not original. Like, come on, man. They made Baldur's Gate.
It's pretty OG. What the time it came out, like that game felt like it was a blast from the past, even when it came out, because there were like more modern kind of philosophy RPGs, and I think they intentionally were like, we're going to do this kind of older idea, and so that game feels older than it is. I think even
I'm not going to take any Origin slights here, man. Origin,
that's fine.
and
I
it's
love
clear to
it.
me that they wanted to ape some Origin stuff, and they were not terribly successful in doing it. I want to say,
I actually don't think that's true. I think they basically went far into the I think they tried to modernize it in a way that incorporated some elements. Like there's a lot of Dragon Age 2, I would say, in this game in terms of like the linear smaller levels. I think Dragon Age 2 is way worse because you're literally going back and forth to like the same four small levels over and over and over again.
Yeah,
but I think it does
by just saying the word Kirkwall. Yes.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. It does borrow a little bit of the philosophy of like you're going on a mission and you're kind of in a straight path like toward it. And at least the missions I played so far has a little bit of that.
The design of this game is 100% Mass Effect 2. Like that is clearly what they were motivated by in the back end, at least when they were changing this from a multiplayer game. Because part of the level design that I want to talk about is that I agree with Ains that this thing hits like a freaking car crash. When you get in there, they have absolutely no onboarding. The plot doesn't make any sense. They immediately swap villains, and the actual gameplay that you're playing is defend the point, Suicide Squad nonsense. And it is not fun when this game starts out. And I do think it gets stronger. I do think it gets better. But like Outlaws, folks, work on your first 10 hours because this is killing me right here.
Yeah, again, I'm just like with Outlaws, I'm not thinking it's as bad in the opening hours as it seems a lot of other people do. But yeah, I mean, it kind of strikes me as like they tried something new. And so I'm not surprised that there's some people who are like, yeah, this is great. It's some of the stuff that I liked from old Dragon Age. It's a lot of the characters I remember, but it's like a new modern philosophy. And that other people are like, I hate this. Why isn't it Dragon Age Origins? Or why isn't it Dragon Age 2? Or why isn't it Dragon Age Inquisition? They all kind of, I already see like camps forming of like, well, this is nothing like Origins, so I hate it. And other people being like, well, this is nothing like Inquisition, so I hate it. So it's just, there's a lot of pressure when you have a franchise like this. I like to think of, the Dragon Age series at this point, I think is defined by the fact that none of the games are really all that like each other, which I think is cool. I would say,
yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's, it's also kind of one of those things that happens when you have 4 entries over the span of 25 years. Well, when did Origins release? It's been a while. It's not 25 years, but it's a long period.
Wait, 2010, I want to say 2009. I was in college, 2009.
Okay, maybe it's not as bad as I remember then.
It had to be.
But anyway,
I remember being in my dorm room.
It was 360, so it's definitely after 2006. Yeah. But anyway, I will say now. So you get through the first few hours, you get to the crossroads, or excuse me, the lighthouse, right, is your home base, right, and you start to have this home base feel with your companions. And to Hoag's point, it does feel very ME2-ish, right? You have your home thing where you between missions you make the rounds of speaking to your companions, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like those interactions. I like the ability, like with the characters, there's a lot of banter when you choose your party and you take your 2 people with you in the combat, and they kind of I'm seeing more and more of that like conversational stuff. And from a combat perspective, we'll get into combat in a minute, but once I got past the first few hours, I'd say probably 4 to 5 hours. The last 5 hours of my 10 so far, I've enjoyed a lot more. Once I got to Crossroads, the levels get a little wider and bigger, and you kind of explore a bit. To Hoag's point, it's still very piecemeal. It feels would be a word I would use, but I like it more than the start, and I am engaged with the gameplay. Like I'm good on the gameplay loop a little bit, in the sense of like the combat can be fun. You can kind of combo some stuff together, right, with your action skills. And then you go down a path, you may find a chest, you get a new item or an upgrade or something. And then you have a boss battle, and then you go unlock another pathway. It's got that loop that kind of is more engaging than I felt at the start. So I'm starting to enjoy it more and more. I will say in that vein, the one thing that I say this all the time that speaks more than actual diagnosis of specific traits of a game is, do I feel like playing it? Like as we're sitting here right now, right, and we're talking about this game, do I want to go play it? Yes, I do. I feel like playing Dragon Age Veilguard. And I think that says a lot about games, because there's other games we talk about. I'm like, I really loved it. And it's like, you want to go play it? And it's like, nah, not really. Where like I can criticize Veilguard for certain aspects that I don't think are great right now, but regardless, I want to go play it. Like it's got something about it that's pulling me in. And I like that so far before we get to the later stuff. But I don't know about you guys in that vein.
I actually agree with that completely. I have wanted to play it each time I put it on. I can't say that about Outlaws, and I finished very strong on Outlaws. But there were times when I hated my life putting that thing on, and I was forced to do it. And Dragon Age Veilguard, I've never had a problem with. At its worst, I've really found it to be kind of boring and non-confrontational. And like those are the sessions where it just wasn't working for me. But at its best, I've enjoyed it. I really like seeing the new places in this game, in this graphics engine, and that's
the
really
environments.
what drives me.
Not to interrupt you, but you commented on your last. You were saying about kind of the fantasy aspect of the environment. They are stunning. Like there is some absolutely wildly impressive kind of environments and kind of design of things in the world, which helps. Kind of get you in that mood.
You get that wonder and awe. You get up to the cliff, you see the sunset in the background and the huge ridiculous statues like Lord of the Rings, and it's great. Like that's the fun. I love that exploration setup. I love going through the game and being like, what's the next area going to look like? And I think that that's really what drives it. And I really do enjoy the game, but the actual playing of it, the combat, the economy, the way the items work, like all of this stuff is so clearly kind of built from a kind of Anthem setup or a multiplayer live service game that I just wish they had taken the extra step to explain what the heck's going on lore-wise, right? So, like, I came to BioWare games back in the day because they were always world building. They were always figuring out why exactly the Mass Effect guns could just be fired forever and ever and ever, and putting that in a codex entry and telling you why. And then when they changed their mind in the next game, they put a codex entry that explained why and how the lore of the universe changed to justify their game design change. And that might seem like a little picky thing, but like that's what I went to BioWare for. And in this game, the basics of your upgrading equipment system is that when you have a common version of an item, it will have essentially 2 perks that are attached to it. And if you find that item again out in the world, you'll unlock the first perk. And if you find it again, you'll unlock the second perk. And then you can upgrade it with kind of standard workshop stuff and finding resources out in the world in a different way. But like, to me, BioWare of old would spend a codex entry explaining what in the hell is happening there. How is my common orb of necrosis becoming an uncommon orb of necrosis when I find a second one? And like these little things that just make a world are not present in Veilguard. I understand it's just gameplay.
I have an explanation for you, Hug.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, what's happening there when you find 2 common orbs of necrosis? Enchantment.
Well, look, they don't have to make a ton of sense. I just need the effort to be in there. Right?
Here's a question I don't know if anyone knows the answer to, because I was thinking about this as I was playing yesterday. So to your point, you can find a new item, or you can find an item and then it upgrades from common to uncommon to rare, etc., which is it's kind of cool. Is that random? Are these chests, when you find one of the item chests, the bigger ones, right, and you do something to get one, is that randomized? Do we know? Or is that like always every playthrough, that's going to be this item or this upgrade?
Idea.
I think the big
I don't know if we'll know that till our second playthroughs.
I think the big chests, the big ornate ones, appear to be like the fancier things, the newish things that you can then upgrade from there. The medium-sized, normalish chests appear to be more random. But again, I'm guessing. Travis is right. You're not going to know until you read an analysis of somebody.
Yeah, I was just curious because, I'm a big loot guy. We always talk about that. So like how they design it, it's a little unfulfilling for me. I like to be able to kind of do some more customization or find more randomized, that's just how it is. But I'm not disappointed by it in the sense of at least there's actual attributes, you're picking what weapon to have on, which may coincide with, your companion's skill, right? Which can then combo. I like that design. I think that's kind of fun.
I don't love the detonation setup. I've never really liked it. This is similar to Mass Effect 2.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
because
I like
it tends to lock you into patterns of what you're going to do. First of all, it locks you into companion groups I think more often than not, right? Like the reason that they highlight this person applies Sundered and this person detonates Sundered is because chances are they should go out together. You should bring them out together. And I don't love that. If I want to bring, the dwarf and the crazy gray warden, that should make sense. I don't want to be locked into these kinds of mechanic setups for the combat in an RPG.
Just a dwarf to you, is it, Hogue? You don't know their name, huh? He's just the dwarf.
Yes.
All right.
That's fine, dude. It's cool.
As a dwarf main, I'm offended, but that's fine. Go on.
Yeah. Well,
that is their word.
I did assume that our audience might not be able to understand when I say harding what I was talking about. So I was trying to be helpful to everybody, but I appreciate being called out by my co-host as always. Every week.
You should be. Called out.
But yeah, so I don't much care for that locking in that way, but I do understand why people would like it. It just seems to lock you into specific people, and it locks you into a kind of pattern that when you use those two things together, you're going to get the best result. And I'm not a min-maxer by nature, but if you really feel a difference between just fighting something and then doing the detonation, you're going to do the detonation.
Yeah, I think, there's definitely that. I like the ability, like the combat. Again, you can tell it feels very God of War 2018. It does. It's kind of action focused. You can kind of do these combo setups. I like it. I'm having fun with it. It does feel patternish, to your point, Hogue. I definitely get that. I think Elu said in the chat, like, don't even pay attention to that. Just play how you want to play. And I think that's fair. Of course, there is the argument for efficiency, or if a boss is challenging, you're going to have to play into those abilities and do things the right way. But
I hate to tell you that this is not a game you really ever need to min-max. I can already tell you that.
No, I haven't had any trouble yet.
And I'm playing on the hardest difficulty. And
it's
going to be an easy game.
Yeah, it's fun though. I think the combat's fun. It's obviously very pretty, right? You get that aspect of it. There's stuff flying all over the place, but I enjoy it. I like it. I think it's
inspired by God of War. One of the issues that I would have at the top of my list is that it's organized like God of War or like Suicide Squad or like one of these multiplayer shooters. And I don't think the combat is within even the notion of the sport, let alone the league or the ballpark of something like God of War. And I'm not the biggest God of War. It doesn't
feel as good as that, no.
But it's not close. Sure. I mean, and I don't blame that's for BioWare. That's not what they make. But I don't think that it's in the neighborhood of those things.
No, I think just design. It definitely doesn't feel as good. No, but then I mean, when it comes to kind of that action and combat, God of War is pretty top tier. So that's not necessarily a negative. But
I'm not pillaring them for it. I'm just saying that one of the issues I have is that it is organized around these kind of combat arenas, and it's not. It can't hold up under that level of scrutiny. You can't be coming to Dragon Age Veilguard for the combat arenas. Like that can't be the only reason you come. Come for the wonder knock, come for the backgrounds and the skyboxes. Maybe come for the lore, but like you can't come here just for the combat, which is serviceable. I like that reference from the earlier super chat.
Yeah. So let me pull some of these super chats back up because I want to give them their right due here, if you will. So let me start with Don. So Don, if you don't know, I know we've talked about it here. Don is reviewing this game for us. He's also a DA fanatic, a true fanatic. Like he knows this inside and out, all the characters, all the comics, all the graphic novels, everything. So Don says, Veilguard is great. The rest is incredible. Now, when he says the bottom, because we've talked about this in our Discord a little bit, I think he's definitely further, by the way. So I'll mention that. And he is also very into, I think I'll speak for him. I hope not too off key here, into the details. So going back to what we said about the codex, the finer details of what's written about the worlds, going to regions that we've only heard about in prior Dragon Ages, right? He's really digging all of that. So to what we were just saying about the actual gameplay or combat, as he said, it's fun, serviceable, etc. But I think he's just really, really liking being in that world again and getting all the details, including the codex entries and stuff. So, from a fanatic's perspective, he's enjoying it now.
Oh yeah,
he's only one of many, I'm sure. So I don't know if that's shared among a bigger group.
Well, like I said, I think the codex is their strongest writing. I do think the lore and the world is well done in this game. I think that the dialogue writing, and to some extent that's character, I actually think the characters have a breadth of different kind of approaches to things, which I really like. I think they've captured some of that Mass Effect 2-ness in there, but the dialogue itself is very kind of 2000s CW or MCU movie kind of quippy sarcasm that, frankly, I get enough of from my teenage daughter at home. Love you, honey. But these characters are very sarcastic. They are very quippy. And I think that the dialogue writing is perhaps the worst that BioWare has ever done. And I say that as someone that really, really likes the codex, really likes some of the stuff they've done on the edges ancillarily in this game. But the dialogue, I almost can't stand.
I see what you're saying. I wouldn't be that negative personally for me. It's definitely quippy. It's definitely, sarcastic, which, I'm sarcastic anyway. So I kind of appreciate to a degree. It is definitely at a lighter, I use the word lighter very carefully here, but a lighter level than some of their other games, especially something like Origins, right? Whether or not you enjoy that is going to be personal taste. I can kind of take it or leave it. I will say, and I think I've seen this in several areas now, both from reviewers I've spoken to and other people who are further, is that, and we talk about this all the time with games, is that both the maps, like the actual world areas you're in, and the stories, like the side stories and the character kind of building, continue to build later in the game and are much stronger later in the game. Can't say if that's true.
Well. Look, I obviously can't speak to that yet. And certainly every review that's extremely positive on this. And I was very interested in how this game was received when the reviews came in. I was reading everything. All the reviews that are very positive on this indicate that they love the last act. They love the ending.
Yes.
Whatever that might be, I don't know. But all of them say that. And so that's very encouraging to me going forward, because I already like-ish the game. Like, I don't hate Veilguard. I'm having trouble with it early on in Act 1. I certainly had trouble with it in the first couple levels. But I am super enthused about a strong ending to this, because I do love Dragon Age as a franchise. I like a lot of this lore. I like what they're doing with it. I wish I were connecting with at least one cast member better. But I'm still playing it. So I'm not out there just relegating it to the dustbin of history, as it were. But I do feel like, with the dialogue written the way it is, with some other things that I could mention, but I want to let the rest of you talk, obviously, that I will get to, that there are issues with this that probably mean that I'm probably putting BioWare away as done in a way that's going to meet Hogue where he lives more often than not.
I agree. And I read a lot on it as well. Like I said, I've spoken to some of the reviewers of some of the higher tiered reviews, the 9s and the 10s. And the shared thing, as you rightfully said, is all that Act 3, or the final act, whatever you want to call it, right, is super, super strong. So I'm anxious to get there. I think what I am excited about in that vein, Hogue, I don't know about you, is that, as I just said, I am wanting to play this game. I feel the need to play it. It's getting better. I like it more now than I did a few hours ago, right? So if that continues to happen and the latter part of the game is very strong, I may end pretty high on this game. So I'm kind of curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think that could be what happened, right? Like, one of the things I say about story-driven reviews is that strong openings and strong endings can really change the critical review of a movie or a television show or a video game. And I do think that the strong ending that apparently exists, I haven't gotten there yet, is part of the story for why you see some of those 10s. If it really connects with people, I think that's how you get scores like that, because I think the game overall has enough clunkiness and concerning things that it doesn't feel anywhere near a 10 to me, certainly. And I'm interested in seeing what comes next as to how we get somewhere approaching that number.
Yeah, me too. Just to circle back on Midnight Jury's comment, said its tone and whimsy remind me more of Hogwarts Legacy, which I think goes back to when I said kind of lighter, like it doesn't feel as
okay, but you don't have to go to a different realm to find a parallel to
analogy.
The writing, though, because this is Dragon Age 2. I mean, it's the same, we're going for a Hollywood blockbuster movie with cheeky characters and dialogue. It's the same. It's the same.
This is closer to a Disney movie. I really think that the closest analog to this is Frozen 2. I love Frozen 2. No, honestly, God. Frozen 2.
I think people need to play Dragon Age 2 again. The dialogue in that game is such a
threaten me with that.
departure. I mean, obviously they don't need to, but like I have a recent experience with Dragon Age 2 because I tried to get D to replay these games. Dragon Age 2's writing is such a departure from Origins. It is so corny. It's so like action packed, one-liners. Like it tries. I think it, based on people's impressions of the last act, I think this game does something similar to Dragon Age 2, which it has like serious themes and tones, and sometimes it hits those. But a lot of like the character writing and dialogue specifically is very like cheeky and lighthearted, almost like they're playing to a completely different audience. So I really don't think you have to go to Frozen or Hogwarts. Like
Frozen is a great reference point here, guys. Frozen 2, specifically, not Frozen 1. Frozen 2.
I've never seen Frozen 2.
Exactly the tone
Thankfully.
of Dragon Age Veilguard.
Okay.
All right.
I'm waiting for the musical numbers in Dragon Age Veilguard, but if they don't come,
I'm down.
Frozen 2 still, check it out.
Okay, first of all, Dragon Age Inquisition actually had a musical number. Okay, so if you're going to compare it to Dragon Age Inquisition, there was a literal musical number. Do you guys remember that?
Inquisition looks like a 4chan edgelord compared to Veilguard.
Oh, dawn will come. All right. Well, that's fine. You guys remember that song?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Guys.
No,
I can't believe you don't remember there was a musical number in Dragon Age. Actually, now that I think about it, there was a musical number in Dragon Age Origins. Liliana.
To be clear,
How
I
did I
like
forget that?
Frozen 2. I'm just saying that this has the same tone.
I just don't. I don't know how you remember those details. I forget all that stuff.
I
loved Origins.
I not only remember that both of those games had lyrics, but I could probably sing them to you from memory right now. I'm not even joking.
Song is not a musical number.
What's that?
A song sung is not a musical number.
That's true, but Dragon Age Inquisition is a musical number. Literally, they all sing as a chorus. There's a whole. Do you not remember this?
I told
you keep asking that. No, I don't remember this.
Inquisition was an age ago, man. A Dragon Age ago. And I don't remember a lot of these details. I remember hating the ending. I remember the beginning being a little rushed. I remember being in the hinterlands for a while before I threw up my hands and said, obviously, I'm supposed to move on. Apparently, some folks on the internet did not. But no, I don't remember a ton. I don't remember Trespasser at all.
Wow,
I don't remember.
You guys need to brush up on your Dragon Age, my dudes. If you don't remember the
by the way, Don tells you it's not a musical number. It's a religious hymn. All right, he's corrected you here.
Okay, first of all, religious hymn is just a church branded musical number, and I do not accept the distinction.
A musical number is
the same thing.
And has dancing, generally speaking.
Okay, that does not pass the smell test because there are so many musical numbers without dancing, bro.
Like
any sad song in any musical.
Any sad song in any musical. I would offer.
Yeah, they stand there. They don't dance.
They're still gonna have a dancing element.
They only dance during the jubilant songs. Okay.
Man, empty chairs at empty tables has a freaking dancing element.
Okay, that is an exception, but there's so many, dude. Come on. There's so many examples that defeat this premise.
All right, moving on from the musical numbers, and which I don't remember.
Is a fake gamer, can't even remember musical numbers.
I cannot.
Legit though, legit. I will sing "A Dawn Will Come" right now. If
I do remember, obviously, the opera scene in Final Fantasy VI because it's
absolutely
an all-time great. You know, you remember the important things in life.
You know what had a musical number? Alan Wake 2.
Check it out, bro. We all remember that. We all remember that one. That one has choreographed dance as well.
Sid, good to see you, man. This is a new super chat. Travis, can you grab this one?
Darth Shishokar, 1,000 rupees. Feels like a section of AAA writers aren't elegant about contemporary themes in their games. It's their decision to include them, but it can be banal, on the nose, and too idiot-proof. Origins was thought-provoking. Veilguard is patronizing.
So I just love what banal and patronizing there. We got to talk about pronunciation sometime, Travis.
What's wrong with that?
Well, so it's patronizing. Patronizing means to shop or give custom to a store. But hey, it's fine. I'm okay. I'm just lawyering down here.
Okay. I assumed that.
So
yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Banal is like about the cause to me. I said banal is like vase to me. It's a selection to sound particularly haughty.
I mean, I think you can put whatever intention on it you think. That's just how I pronounce the words. I don't know.
I will say my family says vase, being English. I don't know if just generally English people say vase. Where's our English people in the chat?
More power to you. The only reason I point out patronizing is that it does have a different meaning when you put that patronizing in.
Aren't they homophones though? I've heard people pronounce that word both ways.
I've heard this.
There are a lot of people that do a lot of wrong things grammatically or otherwise in language, Travis.
I don't know if, I mean, you can call it wrong, but at a certain point, if it becomes common use, at what point is it just the way
language is descriptive and not prescriptive. I agree philosophically, but we can prevent error if we try.
I mean, I've tried.
All right. Let's talk about the comment itself. So I think
so this is one of the major internet points, right? Is that the AAA writers in question here have added certain gender politics and other references directly into the Dragon Age scenario, or Thedos, if you will. But in this particular case, I don't think it's really as bad as the folks on the internet want you to believe it is. For the most part, all of the dialogue in Dragon Age Veilguard is very direct, lacks a lot of subtext, and is designed to be kind of as easily understood as possible. It's almost as if they're speaking directly to the screen. So to me, this is not an issue necessarily of inelegant politicking in the game as much as it's inelegant dialogue writing, period.
I would agree. Yeah. I don't feel it's as harsh, Sid, as maybe you do. It's been a long time since I've played Origins. Going back to prior comments, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I know I loved it. And I know that, as we've said, Veilguard definitely doesn't hit on that same level from a writing or narrative standpoint, at least so far for me. But to Hoag's point, I don't find it patronizing, however you want to pronounce it. I don't find it that. I'm not getting that feeling when I'm playing it. It just doesn't feel super deep at the moment, which is fine.
Yeah, I think that when people do this, they're misremembering how good the writing was in previous games, because there was a lot of this sort of stuff in like Dragon Age Origins, for example.
You mean thinking it was better than it was?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because there was like in Dragon Age Origins, they had some gay characters and they talked about it. And if you go back and play those games, it is so on the nose. I just honestly think that we weren't used to, video games having good writing was still kind of relatively novel. It was like, oh, there's not that many games where we kind of get to see this sort of thing or them talk about topics. And so it was like revolutionary. Oh my gosh, there was a article, I can't remember who wrote the article, like first fully gay character in whatever game that was. It might have been Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Fully gay. Are there partially gay people?
Because literally that was the article headline, was fully gay, and it made me laugh because I was like, okay.
Doesn't BioWare always run everyone as bisexual so that you can romance whoever you want?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think
at one point they made a fully gay character, and so that had to be the article headline, and it just made me laugh. But
that's right, because you could only romance.
Correct.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. You get it. Yeah. So, but some of that dialogue, honestly, it's really, by today's standards, it is a blunt instrument. And I think that the people who have been able to, the studios that have been able to level up their writing and get to the next level, they stand out. Whereas the other studios, and especially sequels that are kind of staying on that course, they just feel a little behind the curve when they talk about the stuff, and a little on the nose and a little, silly.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't think it's as good as people remember in Dragon Age. Like the stuff that they talk about in like political commentary and this sort of stuff is pretty cringe by today's standards, honestly. But again, it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, it's way gone for me.
I can't sit here and say that I loved Origins for the dialogue. I can say that I love the Origins story. And I hope to love the Veilguard story. I have my doubts about that because, as I did put in a tweet, I view the Veilguard plot thrust to be roughly the equivalent of the split between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, where 2 ends with we've got to take out Umbrella, and 4 begins with Umbrella was destroyed by a stock market crash. It's like, well, okay. I mean, that's a direction. You're the storytellers. This one it's good that they changed the name of the game, because it ain't about the Dreadwolf. And to me, that's not great. It's not what I really wanted coming out of Inquisition. And I do think that the replacements for the Dreadwolf, what they're actually doing with this game, have a kind of mustache twirling anime villain sipping on a goblet of wine in a room talking to his legions aspect to it that I just really dislike.
Although we haven't seen it to fruition yet. Like, we don't know where it's going.
Flip around
So,
completely.
Honestly, though, I'm so glad.
fantastic.
I'm so glad they pivoted away from the Dreadwolf thing for a number of reasons. One, I don't think anybody remembers that. That was like a post-credit scene, dude. That whole
It
thing.
was
And then
actually interesting. I mean, like, is that why you like the pivot?
no, it's just like
Well-
it's a post credits thing, and then also you had to play like a DLC that I don't think a lot.
I was just gonna say, wasn't the expand that was like a criticism of Inquisition, like that the closing story aspect was really expansion, like you couldn't even get it in the
Exactly.
core game.
I kind of view Inquisition as largely self-contained, and it feels really weird to do a sequel all these years later. What has it been? 10 years exactly. 10 years later, that's like following up on this cliffhanger that probably nobody remembers and a lot of people might even have gotten to. And if you only saw the post-credit scene and you didn't play the expansion, it makes even less sense because it's like kind of one of those like, oh, they're betraying us, but you don't really understand the full
Let's
context.
say you're right. Do you like the new villains?
I mean, I haven't gotten to that part, but my point is, I
he's
just
too early, Hope.
I'm too early. But my point is, I think it's a good decision to like cut and start fresh for this audience 10 years on who probably have no recollection or affiliation with that whole story, because it keeps some of it, right? It keeps like the character still there and your relationship with that character vis-a-vis Varric and the friendship and the love lost there is still there, but they don't like put all their chips in that basket where like the story makes absolutely no sense if you didn't play Inquisition recently and it's DLC.
But they still use that plot thread. They just bifurcate it. They just put it off in its own bucket. And it's still interesting over in that bucket. And the rest is not. And that's a problem with the way that the plot is structured.
I think to Hoke's point, I kind of agree with you both. Go figure. That happens a lot around here. But I see what Travis is saying, and I agree. But I also see in Hoke's point, like where you are now, like, and Travis will see what you think a few more hours in, right?
Yeah.
They take this turn. They give you these new villains, but to me, they're not I have no interest. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing driving me other than them saying, "Here's your villains." There's nothing driving me or no background to actually make them a threat to me. It's just
I think that's probably a separate problem. But I would just saying I kind of agree with the idea of just like cutting clean and starting with like a new type of villain.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that. I mean, that happens in games all the time.
The fact that the new villains are bad makes me sad. I have not seen that part of the game yet.
Well,
but
I don't really even know yet, but it's just like the setup to it. It's a hard cut, I think is what Hope said. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. What's the Asian lady?
The Asian lady. D?
Oh, yeah, you know
talking about D?
Yeah, that's her. Actually, it's one of D's heroes. What's her name? The lady. Oh, God,
that doesn't
I know
help.
what you're talking about, Travis. I cannot bring up her name. It's something like
no,
it's
Balara. Someone
like
said Balara.
No, it's not Balara. It's like
I'm sorry.
No, it's like Malice Mary. I mean, it's like it's
yeah. It's I think it's ends. It's like, oh man. Oh, this is gonna bother me.
You're getting us off track. Anyway,
I'm gonna think of it and I'm gonna shout it out as soon as I think of it.
Moving on.
Well, let me talk to Sid about this.
Oh, Rita Repulsa. Rita Repulsa. I'm the best. Yes.
You know what? That's why we keep you around, Travis. You nailed it, buddy.
Oh, yeah,
I want to talk to Sid for just a second here on this because I really do want to underline that I don't think Veilguard is unapproachable or problematic for the stuff that it puts in politically, because one of the things that I'm playing this week that I really thoroughly enjoy that isn't in the RPG list that I gave earlier is the new Life is Strange. I love this game. I love it to death. And it takes place at a liberal arts college in Vermont. And everybody in the story, as far as I can tell, is gay or trans or gay and trans. And like, that's just the nature of the story they're telling. And it doesn't take away from the story itself. It doesn't take away from the narrative that they are telling it with. And it honestly makes sense for the environment that the story takes place in. So it's not the case that you can't tell an interesting story and have good aspects of it, even with relatively politically charged characters or characterizations. So I don't really view it as something that should be counted against Veilguard. except to the extent that it is that blunt instrument and can take you out of the world in some instances. That doesn't happen with me. It certainly doesn't happen in Life is Strange because I expect all of that in that particular world. But I can understand and be sympathetic to those that see that in certain respects and say, okay, now I'm thinking about other stuff, whether it's the U.S. political election, whether it's other things, instead of Thedas and these villains that are Rita Repulsa and need to be stopped. So I get that, but I don't think it's specifically a problem.
Rita Repulsa. Now I'm excited.
I get, yeah, I appreciate that, Hogue. We're not going to take a tangent into that realm, but it's almost I would say it's a shame it's political, right? It shouldn't have, it's not really political in that sense. I get what you mean for sure. It's a shame that we think of those topics as political. Do you know what I mean? And I think your point is acutely right in the sense of shouldn't have any impact on the story they're telling at all.
And also play Life is Strange because I really like it.
We have, I didn't mention it in the currently playing, but we have our review. That Don actually reviewed that as well prior to getting into Dragon Age.
Still haven't even
Double Exposure is not nearly as sexual a title as you might think.
Are you sure?
Sid, thank you for the comment. Appreciate you as always. HP, let's go.
HP, Mr. Lovecraft hopping in for a $5 super chat. 30 hours in, and I'm finding it more engaging than Inquisition.
It's better than
Inquisition. Rook a lot better than the Inquisitor as a character. But how is it musical number?
If I have an issue with the opening of this game, it's that Rook appears in between games. You get your kind of origins card, but he isn't, or she isn't, a character in any important respect. It is very much Commander Shepard, right? Like it is just a blank slate kind of character that shows up with a background and does their thing. But
that is pretty
corollary to that is that Commander Shepard in Mass Effect works because you're making big choices in the universe. And so far in BioWare's Dragon Age The Veilguard, I haven't made a choice of any import as best I can tell. You're not picking between factions. You're not picking between states of the world. And to the extent that you are, you're railroaded into whatever choice they want you to make. I really think that this is a game where BioWare wanted to make something closer to a JRPG with a set beginning, middle, and end, and way that the characters and Veilguard group retinue interact, and didn't want to give up that kind of BioWare pedigree of choice making. And unfortunately, I think that winds up in some of the negative reviews you see because it's wearing a kind of Western RPG choice veneer, a skin suit, if you will, when it's really a JRPG. It's really closer to, and it makes me want to play Final Fantasy 16 than it is something like Dragon Age Origins.
Can we
again? So far, we have to keep caveating here.
I mean, we've said it already. It's understood.
Yeah, I know. I just
guys
played a game called Embargo.
No, can we put an embargo on Hogue saying the word skin suit? Is that possible?
I thought you said, have you played Embargo? And I'm like, what? Okay.
I'm just wondering if we could avoid Hogue saying skin suit again.
Skin suit. We should avoid that, to be fair. HP.
I like you saying it either. Do I sound that gross when I say it?
I mean, never mind. HP, thank you for the super chat. Start with the member comment.
Sardinisms has been a member for 10 months. Thanks,
No,
Sard.
we're trying to move on, Sard. Come on.
Mulan. Reflection. No dancing. Hogue is wrong.
All right. She twirls around the little lake that she's looking at her face in.
Come on.
All right.
Yeah.
Again,
he's going to be like, he's going to be like, well, technically all movement is dance. It's really a spectrum, you know? It's like, okay.
Number. Yeah. I would call that a song more than a musical number.
Okay. Well, I know you don't remember this, so you need to sit down, sir. But in a dawn will come, they march. Is that not a form of dancing? They march, they hike, they go over a mountain. That's how you find the keep.
Okay.
My man, I'm going to take your word for
it. By the way, Sard said I sent that before we moved on. So fair, very fair. Sorry. Thank you as always. Apocalypse,
dead on arrival, gives me $5 personally and writes, Morning Hogue, liked Mrs. Hogue's Eye of Sauron. What did
I miss here?
What happened?
I don't know. Honestly, I know we have a dragon eye necklace. I think you're making assumptions that DOA means dead on arrival in this context. Could mean anything.
Well.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Hey, you can see it. Why aren't you wearing that, by the way? Come on.
That was for auction during Ian's
the stream.
Extra Life
Cool.
stream, but I was not able to get back on to auction it off. So I have to communicate with everybody as to what's going to happen to it.
Gotcha. All right. Don's keeping us in check here.
Don Lionheart writes for $2. Back to Dragon Age, people.
We're on it, Don. We're on it. Apocalypse, thank you for the super chat, Don. Shoosh kind of backed you up here, Travis.
Shoosh. A lot of guys remember their impression of facts instead of actual facts. People are missing campy 2009 Edge, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Mass Effect 2 were, and mistake it for better quality. Yeah, I think that's
Remember,
fair.
I don't like Mass Effect 2.
Look, I don't think. Well, I mean, but the writing's good. Well, for the time it was. I think it's not that they were bad back then. It's that by today's standards they're bad. And so I think when people,
I'm going to disagree with Travis and Shush entirely on this. This is the absolute definition of cherry picking. Yes, there is camp, there is humor, there are quips in the earlier Dragon Age, in the earlier BioWare games. That doesn't suffuse them in their entirety, like I'm telling you, you will get in Veilguard. It is a different type of writing. And Dragon Age Origins can have those moments, but that doesn't mean that, like in Veilguard, you're getting, I'm too old for this shit, or it was quiet, too quiet, as you go through a quiet area. Like, it's TV tropes, the movie, when you watch this thing.
Yeah, so I think what I was referring to specifically is when we talk about like the social, political stuff that's happening in these games. I think they handle those with like not great, but by today's standards, it would seem like a kind of hitting you over the head with it a little bit, or not very elegant with it.
Yeah,
I do agree that this game already, from what I've played, has like way more like action movie vibes with like all the cliches. But Dragon Age 2 does that too, and I will die on that hill. It has that.
If you want to go die on the hill of the worst rated Dragon Age game, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one of the criticisms, right? So
I think he just means like this is new for Dragon Age. Like they've done this
for Dragon Age, but I agree with the criticism for Dragon Age 2 in the same way that I would agree with it for Dragon Age Veilguard.
Yeah, gotcha. Debbie Dubs,
$5 and writes, Origins has the female city elf origin with, what's SA?
SA is bad things. I can say the words if you like.
Yeah. Okay.
With SA being,
it's a kind of assault.
Oh, gotcha.
Nature.
Gotcha. The assault being the central event of it. Let's not pretend Dragon Age Origins is the height of great writing. I forgot about that.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Continuing the theme.
I was a Dwarven king that had his throne stolen from him.
So Dee actually chose that route when she played, and I think that was the first time I had seen that origin. Yeah.
Damn.
That's a pretty rough one.
All right.
Let's talk about, again, we can talk about metaphor and allegory and politics versus politics. Like, I do understand people not liking it when it's branded in a blunt fashion and being taken out of the world. But certainly it is the case that Origins has a number of things that are allegorical, that have political components to talk about society as it functions in Thedas. Yeah. Not the least of which is the way elves are treated in that world, right? And the humans blame the elves for the state of the world, and they put them into what amounts to ghettos in their areas, and that's a certain commentary about
do
how
that
we
with
treat
magic
each other.
users. Oh,
the circle is a conversation.
Dragon Age 2 does the same thing. So like these games have degrees, like there's some.
You're allowed to have a society that you're going to world build around. That's really what we want out of our fantasy.
It's really the tone of like the conversations between the characters. I'm talking about dialogue. Really, the dialogue I think doesn't usually match in Dragon Age the level of like kind of messaging that they're trying to do or allegories that they're setting up. It's like, oh, that's a really cool idea and interesting, and it kind of has a comparison to the real world. And then the person will comment on it like, yeah, man, it's a bummer. Ugh. And you're like, what?
I think there are aspects of the writing in Veilguard that suggest that BioWare is less good at writing than it used to be. But there are aspects that suggest it's just fine, right? The codex, the lore, some of the stuff that goes into it is great stuff. And it's just not reflected in what we presume to be a production choice to make all these characters sound very much like sitcom characters in most of the scenarios they find themselves in. And so
I think it's a decision, because I would say they had the same problems in Dragon Age 2, and then they corrected
that's
them.
the bad one. You keep going back to 2.
I know, but you're saying that it's a sign that they've gotten worse at writing. They can't.
I
get
said
worse
it
at
wasn't.
writing.
I said that there's evidence on both sides. So the people that say that BioWare is dead, I don't agree with, except for the leadership maybe putting them in a direction that doesn't put their best foot forward.
I think they just made a decision of like, hey, we want to keep this lighthearted and make it more of like a blockbuster movie that's like fun and light. And that's not going to hit with everybody, myself included, by the way. I think that's super a bummer, because I like the little quieter moments you get in Dragon Age Origins where they're talking, and it's less bombastic and flamboyant.
Yeah. Debbie Dubs, thank you very much. All right. So we've kind of circled the wagon on this. Obviously, I think, let's continue this conversation in the future of once we get further into the game and really see if Act 2 and 3 take shape and what that looks like, and we'll see. The other interesting thing that came out about this, no expansions for this game. They basically said they're going to update it, tune it, fix bugs, what have you. But this is the game, and the entire team will be moved to Mass Effect once this game is fully updated. There's nothing else coming. So I don't know enough about the ending to know how it wraps up or anything else, but no more content for Dragon Age for what seems like, again, a long time.
I honestly don't love prior BioWare expansions, so this doesn't bother me.
Ooh, Lair of the Shadow Brokers?
Shadow Brokers pretty good.
No?
What about Awakening? Or not
I really didn't like Awakening.
Awakening, yeah. I thought that was pretty good.
But yeah, I guess the question I was going to ask you guys, right? So we've debated around what is BioWare in 2024 or this era, whatever you want to say. We have Veilguard. We obviously need to play more. We'll talk about that. But, as we think about them now moving fully onto Mass Effect, and you're going to have similar expectations, I would probably argue Mass Effect's bigger than Dragon Age, right? In terms of IP and kind of expectations in that community. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see, especially given what we saw with Mass Effect, the difference between 1, 2, and 3 alone in the original trilogy. And then Andromeda, of course. Where the hell do we go with Mass Effect 5?
But those differences are not as wide as the Dragon Age series. So I think they have less freedom. Like, people come to a Mass Effect game for a specific thing. And so if they're going to make a pivot, that's going to be like a really big choice. I'm not even opposed to it, but I think it would be more significant than Dragon Age.
Well, presumably they're not going to put frozen characters into Mass Effect. So
wouldn't put it past them.
I would expect them to not change the graphic style as much as they did for Veilguard.
From what we've seen of the engine already, it seems like that's not the case.
But I have to be honest, I'm not holding out hope for the next Mass Effect, A, coming anytime soon, or B, being worth that wait. I really am putting my hopes behind that Exodus project that's been releasing world lore trailers for like the last 6 weeks. And I think that it's got that Mass Effect vibe. I think it's got that interesting world I want to explore kind of feel to it that I feel like I'm unlikely to get out of Mass Effect, which feels like well-trod ground at this point, especially if they're going to back out of the Andromeda Galaxy and what they were building over there, which I think they have to. Then I just don't think that there's anything more for me. In Mass Effect, I'd rather explore a new universe. And I think Exodus, which we don't have any information of as a game, has the emphasis behind storytelling and world building that I want to see. So that's what I'm hopeful for. And I have no idea when that's coming. It's the next couple of years, I would assume.
I do agree. I'm less excited about returning to a world I already know than seeing a world that you don't know. And something
that's the fun of Veilguard, right? Like Tevinter is cool. We've heard about Tevinter like every damn game.
Yeah. So they have a very big task ahead of them to make Mass Effect universe interesting, especially if they're going back to the original one and original Galaxy, and they're going to presumably have to make some canon decision about what happened at the end of Mass Effect 3. And it's going to be very weird. It
doesn't matter, folks. It doesn't matter what happened at the end of Mass Effect 3.
It kind of matters if there's a Mass Effect 4, because if you get one of those endings, the world looks a lot different. That's all I'm saying.
The endings are going to be like the Mass Effect relays are fine. We will hand wave at it and let's proceed with our game.
Possibly. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We will see, but yeah, it's you play Veilguard, you think about BioWare, you think about where they came with Anthem, which we've talked about ad nauseum, and you think about where they are now, the talent, the staff, the all that leadership from that era being gone. It's really going to be interesting to see what Mass Effect is in 2028 or whenever that game releases.
I think Veilguard is perfectly fine. I do not hate it. I am not going to have BioWare projects on my hype list for the future.
I'll see. I want to see where Veilguard goes, eventually here. So we'll see. You know what that brings us to, boys? The pizza bet
section. Oh, okay. Pizza bet.
We had a pizza bet on Dragon Age The Veilguard. To remind everyone who may not have been with us at the time, it was guessing the open critic score. Whoever was closest, up or down. Ho guessed 77. I guessed 79. Travis guessed 81. Sad fact is, it's an 82. Where it landed.
What?
It's where it's sitting right now after I don't know how many reviews, quite a few. It is one of the higher games, obviously. It's considered strong on the Veilguard on Open Critic site. But regardless, it does mean that Travis has won back-to-back pizza bets, which is just
I can't
terrible.
afford these losses to Travis, man.
I don't know how this happened, Hogue. Well, the good news is though, there wasn't like a special Papa John's.
Well, yes, that was all in our private conversation.
That was in our private conversation. Yeah. I was like, we should make somebody eat this jack-o'-lantern shaped pizza. But it occurred to me that this is probably happening after those pizzas are gone because Halloween passed. So I don't know. We'll just have to figure something out.
Give you a Thanksgiving, a turkey shaped pizza,
Yeah, maybe I'm open to whatever dumb idea because I don't know. I feel kind of bad winning twice in a row, but I also feel great.
I was going to have a supermarket just deliver to you like 4 of their $3 pizzas from a local supermarket.
Good, good for you, Travis. You earned it. Yeah. You had a better understanding of the malleability of the gaming press than I did. And I hope that you enjoy your pizza and that you definitely don't choke on it.
Look, I knew this game was going to be divisive, but here's the thing. We all did. We did this blind. For those who don't remember, we did this blind where we wrote it down and then we all showed the score at the same time. And just organically, we were all within 5 points of each other. Nobody said this was going to be a 90 or a 92, and nobody said it was going to be a 50 or a 60. And so I think that speaks to kind of our understanding, just looking at this and the previews and trailers, that we knew this game was going to have some people who really loved it and some people who really didn't. And so I was a little bit more optimistic on more people liking it than hating it. But more importantly, I thought that the people who didn't like it wouldn't like it so much that they dragged the score down into the 70s, because you really have to get like a lot of 4s and 5s for it to start to impact the average. So yeah, I'm okay. Well, I'll get a $5 pizza from y'all. We'll do Domino's or whatever.
We'll figure it out. But congrats. Yes, you won that one, and we'll figure out our next one. I don't know what could our next one be. What is the next game that can be divisive? How about Indiana Jones?
I'm not betting on review scores with Review Man up there.
Yeah, it's not fair. We should do something else. Let's do. We got the Game Awards coming out soon. We could do what we did last year.
Oh, whoever guesses the most Game of the Year nominees. Okay, we'll do that. Well, not today.
There is
we'll
one area where I think the Dragon Age fans are going to be unhappy. I don't think Veilguard is within a country mile of competing with Rebirth and Metaphor and Infinite Wealth and those kinds of games.
Although
Rebirth, you've ranted about how bad Rebirth is countless times.
Rebirth is a better game than Veilguard.
Okay, but Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth is the best RPG this year, so that wins, right?
I do not get to make the decisions on this. I would have Infinite Wealth at the top of the RPG list.
So I found out this past week that I do get a say in the Game Awards Jeff Keighley show this year.
So we can't bet on the Game Award nominees.
Yeah, exactly. So I was about to say that. I think I have to abstain because I actually do get a vote this year, which is super cool for me.
Well, we have to find that is awesome, but we have to find something the three of us can put on for sure.
Yeah, that's true. All right, fine.
Yeah. All right,
I forgot about that before I suggested it, and then right after that, I was like, "Wait, I'm voting this year. I actually do have influence." So yeah, we probably can't do that. Sorry, guys.
Oh, you're good. Before we move on, Sid did have a follow-up super chat I forgot about here. I apologize. Let's grab
Sid
this.
Arth, comes back with 200 rupees to say, just to clarify, my issue is more about how they do contemporary themes, not the presence of them. I just think it's not done well often. Veilguard is just a reminder personally.
Yeah, no, I
agree.
get that. I get that
That's
100%.
fair. Yeah, perfectly fair.
It is a little on the nose sometimes.
And I think it can be jarring and take you out of the world.
Yeah.
It is different to be in Thedas than at a Vermont
I will
liberal
say,
college.
Dragon Age has always been super gay. Play Origins, man. That game is hella gay.
I really don't.
I don't even think he's
Dragon Age Origins.
I was gonna say I don't think he was referring purely to sexuality, but yeah, that's fine.
No, I was referring purely to sexuality. It is, dude. You guys remember the Antivan assassin? And he goes, you know, the guy with the Spanish accent.
I was too invested in Morrigan at the time. I don't know what to tell you, Travis.
Oh yeah, well,
fair.
I'm telling you, that guy comes at you hard.
Every time I play a Dragon Age, I wind up watching Farscape again because Claudia Black is just so cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Sid, yep, thank you very much, man. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. All right. Oh, shout out to Midnight Jury, gifted 1 season gaming membership. Thank you, Jury. Always appreciate the support. Thank you very much. All right. So we've got to talk, guys, because you know, I'm repping one of the games I liked a lot this year, you know, had to pull it out for today. Let's go Concord. Are we bringing that back soon? Is that do I get to play it?
Why are you doing this to me? I got my controller. I got my Concord controller.
Oh, that's crazy. You guys have like relics of a bygone era. My review, I mean, that's pointless.
I know.
Now.
I have the controller. I have a physical copy, and now I have a hoodie. And the funny story about this hoodie, they were selling Concord merch, right? None of it had shipped. It's all pre-order, right? Which obviously I assume now they're just gonna cancel it. Yeah. So I ordered a mug. Just as a joke, actually, like 2 months ago, it never shipped. So I'm like, wait a minute. All right. So I look at the hoodie. If you selected small, medium, or large, it said pre-order on PlayStation Direct. But if you selected extra large, which this is, it said in stock at the Midwest location or something. So I ordered it thinking maybe they'll actually ship this if I ordered it. And sure enough, it showed up yesterday. And I'm like, cool, got a Concord.
It's a cool sweatshirt. I like the orange inside. I love that. I love my Concord controller. It's a really cool design. But yeah, the strangest part about this story, for folks that don't know, Firewalk was closed by Sony this week, and basically Concord is dead. I was surprised by Sony deciding to make that choice. I have talked about it in the space that I thought they were going to try to bring it back free to play. It looks like they at least examined what that kind of would take resource-wise and decided against it. But Firewalk, for however you feel about Concord, released a game that didn't have a lot of bugs, that had a multiplayer that functioned, that had good design,
played well,
ideas, even if you didn't like how they were implemented, and they just burned the whole thing down. Generally speaking, in most industries, when you have something that functions at least that well, you can sell it off. You can move it in a different direction. You could even move it onto your other internal projects. So I guess I'm surprised at this from Sony, but I'm not surprised from a kind of politics on this, because you do have a new CEO, you do have a new structure of the company, and there is often a case where you just burn the assets that your predecessor was fond of or that brought into the company. And so I view this as more a commentary on the shift in leadership at Sony Interactive Entertainment than on Firewalk specifically, because I do think that there was some asset value to them as a functional company that released a game. And this is a shame. This is a sad story for everybody involved.
Yeah,
it is.
I think it's more about like they probably were busy doing an analysis of what they'd have to change to make Concord successful, and they looked at like.
Yeah, but Concord isn't the be-all and end-all of analyzing a functional game development company.
Yeah, but you have to look at the sunk cost of building this type of game. Like, what would they have had to do to make it successful? Especially since it sounds like they were building not only their entire studio, but a lot of like their live service strategy around this. If the reporting is true on that.
No, I get moving away from Concord. I get saying we don't have the resources to do that. I don't understand the shuttering of Firewalk, which is clearly a functional company, or was before it was shuttered.
With some talent, no doubt.
Yeah, and it has had a lot of the Destiny people that they acquired Bungie to get. So it's kind of yeah, it is a weird.
It is weird.
It's weird.
And what they just so we're accurate on our reporting here too, they closed Neon Koi as well, which was a studio they had set up for mobile development. So that was shut the same
had it
day.
Released anything? I don't think they've released anything yet. So there's a massive strategy shift. And honestly, if I'm a shareholder or if I'm a board member, I am looking at Herman Holst and saying, what are we doing here? It clearly can't make us money when they're dead. And maybe they were going the wrong direction, and that's sunk cost, and we don't analyze that for what happened in the past because we can't change the past. But is this really the best, most efficient call right this second, or is this reactionary to what you saw from the Concord release? Are you skittish? Are you scared? Are you burning it because it wasn't yours? What is the story here? I've said this before in this space, but I don't have a lot of faith in the leadership at Sony knowing what the hell they're doing right now. And this is one of those things where it says, yes, Concord can be an abject failure. You don't have to bring Concord back. But Firewalk, even cut and split for parts, you would think would have some value to other publishers or heck, even Microsoft. And it doesn't look like you even tried. We didn't even have any rumors of them being shopped around. And Concord doesn't have to be a product that works so much as it's a product that exists, and that's a value in and of itself in the video gaming and any other software related industry. So this is just a really weird story to me.
Yeah, it is weird. My guess is they're probably didn't see a path forward for Concord. They looked at the next pipeline for Firewalk, and it was probably so far away and just as risky and as expensive to make. And they're probably just like getting whiplash from that last big bet that they made that just completely whiffed and didn't work out. So it's a bummer, but yeah, not every game can be successful. I stand by my 7 of 10 review score. I think it had a really good foundation, just was missing a lot of meat on the bones, but they could have built on that if they had prepared a live service model. And yeah, I guess we'll never see past week 3 of the story.
Yep. That's what I tweeted out was I'm never going to get that week 4 intro.
It's crazy. Like, think about it. Like we played a big budget AAA multiplayer shooter with a live service plan for 2 weeks and it's gone forever. It's crazy as hell. I don't know.
What if they didn't have a week 4 and this was just their way of like, hey, sorry, couldn't get it out. I just, we had a whole thing planned. It was going to be great.
They said didn't they say, I vividly remember saying they had like 12 months or like a year of like the store. 16 weeks. Okay. So I wonder, like, is PlayStation ever going to officially release those, or are we ever going to see those in a leak like a decade from now? Someone's just going to leak them. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't remember that Concord is one of the games in the Amazon show coming out in December. So we'll get that.
That's right.
Yeah.
A game that's canceled and gone is going to show up in a video game show.
Yeah. I think the show will probably still happen. They probably are done with it, but
wild. Amazon's not going to just not have their renderings in the show.
What if the show is good and is super successful?
I mean, it's just one episode of the show. So
the most watched part of the show is the piece with Concord in it.
I really hated this except for that Concord episode.
Yeah. What if Concord like took off and it became like a really big just show, like it was just
people are like, I want to learn more about these characters.
Yeah,
like,
tell me more about Star Child. Well, I can tell you about Star Child, folks. I read all of those codex entries.
Yeah, I did too for the review. I bet you what would happen is they would just put all the Concord characters in Fortnite and call it a day. Because I bet you those are, dude. Yeah, if it blew up, if that was like, oh my god, the show's amazing, they would just be like, well, we got to have this character somewhere. Put them in Fortnite; they'll take anyone.
Eric said, "Who's going to make Concord remastered if Firewalk is closed?"
Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog's already on it, actually.
Yeah, they're working on it right now. That's great. Well, yeah, crazy story, but at least I guess we've been speculating about what was going to happen with Concord and stuff for a couple months now. So there's our closure. Yeah, it's done. So put a fork in it. My hoodie, though, will be rocked.
That's a collector's item now, dude.
Hell yeah, it is.
I really like the look of that hoodie.
I'm telling you.
People are going to ask you, what is Concord? And then you're going to stare into the middle distance.
Sit down, little child. Let me tell you a story.
Oh, Concord. What a good 2 weeks it was.
We live life for 2 weeks. Yes.
I did get more than 100 games in on that 2 weeks. I thought I was playing it because it would eventually die. I didn't think it would die in 2 weeks.
Now that it's fully gone, like Concord's never coming back, the game actually spent more time. It was playable for longer during its alpha and beta periods than it was after it came out. Its alpha and beta lasted like slightly longer than 2 weeks. It was like 3 weeks.
That's horrible.
It was playable more of its life as an alpha beta than it was during.
It's terrible, man. The gaming industry and all industries have these types of things, right? But we've talked about it at length. It's like, imagine if like, because we've seen a lot of the team members at Firewalk post, right? Very positive about how they were working on the game and working together. And it's just like, imagine, spending years of your life super dedicated to creating that world and the characters and whatever, whether you like them or not, doesn't matter. Just imagine that's your career. And then, it comes out, it falls flat on its face and it's completely dead and you get laid off. And it's just like, God, that's got to be one hell of a world to live in, man. I feel for those people.
I will say that I'm a lot more sympathetic if your studio closes, everybody gets laid off. That to me is just, that's the risk of entrepreneurship. I'm much more okay and less angry about this sort of closure than like, hey, we're cutting 10% of our staff because we want to be profitable or whatever. So, this is, to me, this is it's a bummer, but hopefully the people who are in these positions knew the risk.
Clearly talented people.
You start a studio, it's tough.
Yeah.
There's always risk, right? Hopefully.
Let's I got one more super chat to get to from Lucius here.
Lucius Augustus for $2 says Pokemon TCG Pocket is going to take all my money.
I'm seeing people go nuts for this game.
Pokemon
Bartman
TCG
is right. We didn't talk about it. That game is cool.
Yeah.
It's all over my timeline. Yeah.
Also, did you guys play the Game Boy game? The Pokemon TCG
back
game?
in the day, Game Boy Advance.
That game is sick. So I'm happy to be playing Pokemon TCG again on a mobile device.
I don't play Pokemon, but the people I know who do love this.
Yeah. Well, this is that Game Boy game, but with like cool graphics and kind of taking the Marvel Snap approach to making the cards cool.
It's exactly cool. That is what the original Game Boy game did. It was trying to make it so people actually played the card game, because Pokemon's one of those things where nobody actually played the card game. They just collected it. This and then the mobile game you were talking about earlier, Hogue, and
excuse me,
Destiny Rising. There's now a Destiny mobile game, a gacha game. You guys know about this?
I saw it. I have no clue as to what it is.
Yeah, I'm not in the alpha. I think I applied for it, but I didn't get in. So, but I've seen people posting about it. Apparently it's pretty good, but it's like very gacha microtransaction.
Did Bungie actually make it, or some third party company?
No, it's the company that makes all the big gacha.
It's like NetEase, isn't it?
NetEase, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
and so but it is a shooter. It's a first person shooter. I mean, yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Lucius, thank you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. All right. The last thing I want to mention today is this trailer that someone sent us to talk about on the show. I'm not going to play it because it's like a 6-minute long trailer, but I hadn't heard of this game prior. It looks absolutely insane. So it's called Showa, SHOWA, Showa American Story. I'm going to put the link in our chat on SG side of the house. Tide, if you can maybe help me on Hogue's side, you can check this out. It looks wild. I don't know where this came from. It's from Neckcom Games. Trailer came out 2 days ago. It is coming to Steam. I don't know if it's coming to other platforms as well. But just check it out because it looks very, very comical.
Yeah, we'd heard this talked about a little while back. This is the first big trailer that I've seen of it. It's the one where Japan has taken over the United States, and the United States is now a colony of Japan, and is suffused with anime stylings and also zombies.
And zombies apparently you're right. Yeah, Netcom Games debuted the trailer for this 2 years ago.
It's like a comedy Man in the High Castle.
Well, I mean, Japan isn't evil and imperial in this, I don't think.
Japan is always evil and imperial. Okay.
But yeah, just look at the trailer. Just watch it because it's the weirdest mix.
How are they not evil and imperial if they took over the United States? Explain that to me.
I think I don't know. It's just a trailer.
I don't know, man. I'm a skeptic. I don't know what they're doing here, but it doesn't seem to be good.
Well, Showa refers to one of their emperors, right? Like that's one of their emperor's names.
Sounds right.
Maybe. Sure. We'll go with it. But the trailer itself is it's the weirdest mix. It's like if you took, all the side quests in Yakuza, mashed them together with zombies, and just threw it all together. It just looks wild. So definitely check it out. It's quite comical. Super chat from Shoosh just came in.
Sorry, one sec. I'm responding to a comment that I have to. Okay,
well,
Shoosh, $5 super chat. Games with synonyms to unison in the title don't tend to do well. Anthem, Concord. Watch out for Psalms, hymn, or chants in the future.
Wasn't there a game with chant in the title like last year, a horror game? Am I thinking of something?
The Chant, yes, is about like a new age cult of murderers on an island.
And it didn't do well. So Shoosh is proving 100% accurate so far.
Well, I do want to offer that Chorus is an excellent game.
That's true. Chorus is good, and Anthem is a good book. So
Anthem was a good game. I'll die on that hill. It wasn't great, but I liked it. I
think you'll find a lot of Anthem DNA in Veilguard. Like their combat and arenas have a lot of Anthem in them.
A little bit.
I'm just gonna read Ayn Rand after this. You can't stop me.
You go nuts, Travis. Whatever makes you happy. You read some Ayn Rand. You play some BioShock.
Hell yeah!
You get all objectivist in this house.
Hell yeah, dude.
All right, boys. I think we're going to wrap it up there. We've got a great next week coming up, too. So next week I will have, or Travis, you got one. PS5 Pro arrives Wednesday or Thursday of next week. The same day as PS5 Pro, we also got the new Mario and Luigi Brothership on November 7th. Brothership.
Yeah.
RPGs.
And we also get Metro Awakening VR, the Metro VR game, which actually looks quite strong.
That. Yeah.
Are you? Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully we can talk about that as well. And then one that is really gone under the radar, which, right or wrong, the next day on November 8th is Slitterhead. And if you don't remember Slitterhead, it is the horror game from Shinji Mikami in his new studio. If I'm remembering correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. It is, it looks like traditional Japanese horror, but when he left and kind of created his new studio, this is their game. So
I'm going to start calling people Slitterheads.
It is a funny name for a title.
Dude, I was at the restaurant last night and these freaking Slitterheads walked in. Bro.
That sounds so derogatory. Like that sounds horrible.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. It's my name. What does it mean? You don't know, but it's provocative. I don't like that.
From Boca Game Studio. Oh no. Not Shinji. Silent Hill's creator. Kichiro Toyama. So we'll see. We'll see if it's any good. I don't know, but that's coming out next week as well. So anyway, we'll talk next week about PS5 Pro, new Mario and Luigi, and some other things, of course, probably some new previews and reviews as always. Let's go ahead and start closing out. So one note I want to put out there for anyone watching this later. If you are a developer, big or small, in the industry that, has been working in the industry for a while, or, is open to talking about some things about the job, about the industry, about potential layoffs, anything to do with the industry, reach out to me, please. You can find me everywhere, social media, DM me. My DMs are open. Just DM me. Working on a little something on the side with some other people that it could play into. So I'd appreciate that. What is your
social media handle, Ains?
Yeah, so you just find me as Ains anywhere. I'm Porsche Power, but I mean, you can find me as Ains. I'm easy to find, or just email me at Season Gaming. The stuff's out there as well, so you can go on the site and find me.
I can't speak for Ains, but I have been having difficulty searching for basically anything on Twitter.
Well, X is broken. It's a train wreck. Other. Yeah.
Hey, that's
yeah,
not
you're
true.
right.
I find pornography and ads about politics and crypto very easily.
God, I can't wait for the ads about politics to be done.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Some pretty aggressive ones on X specifically.
Yes. Aggressive's one word. But God. Anyway, other than that, on the Season Gaming side, we do have a preview of Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D remake, a preview from Alex that is up. Yeah. So definitely check that out. And the I can't say anything further. Whew, almost caught myself there. But the preview is up. You can check that out. Life is Strange, Double Exposure, as Hogue mentioned. A review from Don will be up tomorrow on that, and he's a big Life is Strange guy. Talks about kind of the history and the tie-ins and stuff, so you can check that out.
I haven't gotten to the end of Double Exposure, and it's a mystery, so your mileage may vary by the time we get to the end, but through about 4/5 of the game, it's just a series of really interesting mysteries, really well done, really well told. Really can't recommend Life is Strange Double Exposure more from my perspective.
You know what, Hogue? You're a really interesting mystery.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Travis.
Yeah, I won't spoil his review, but he's high on it as well. So I don't think you're alone there. And generally, the people I've seen playing it and the reviews are high as well. So definitely check that out. We also have a review of Black Ops 6, the whole package, like I said, with Zombies multiplayer campaign you can check out. And then I am actually going on a trip next week, as is Travis. We're both traveling next week to cover games that we can't quite talk about yet. But
Where you
exciting
going? Where you
times ahead.
Where you headed?
Going to LA, my friend.
Nice. I'm going to Canada.
Yeah. Say hi to your favorite people. I like Canada. Don't worry about
They're
Travis.
just nice game developers. Don't them.
God. I mean, look, the game developers are the reason I go, but Jesus, man, Canada.
Oh, stop it.
We love you Canadians in chat.
Go off, Canadians.
Yeah, get them.
Yeah.
Hogue, what you got, my friend?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I did a video this week. I am doing videos more often. I'm basically averaging 1 or 2 per week at this point with the Bitcast. So if you are interested in those kinds of things, my most recent one was on headlines regarding Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump. So if you're just interested in more political content, come join us in Hangouts and Headlines. And look forward to the end of this on Tuesday for Election Day. So folks, come see that kind of content on my channel. We're doing good stuff. I was also a part of a Dungeons and Dragons stream on Ian Runkle of the Bailey channel yesterday with most of the Lawyers and Dragons cast, where we were Christmas elves fighting off Halloween monsters and more. So if that interests you, check that out. Ian did a great job raising money for Extra Life, and I could not be prouder of him. He's got 24 hours of video replay that if you're interested in just hearing them chat about various things, go check that out, make donations, do all the great stuff. I am very happy to be a part of communities like his.
Yeah, it does really good stuff. Todd reached out to me about it. It's awesome. I was out very busy yesterday. I didn't get to check it out, but I'm glad it went so well. He usually raises a ton of money for really good causes, so it's great. Good stuff. Travis, what you got?
Yeah, like I said, I'm reviewing the Metro VR game. I don't know if I'm going to get a code early or if I'm going to review it.
I was going to say it comes out this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I was told
that reminds me, I got to get into my Batman outfit, right?
Yeah, bro. Have you played it at all?
I have not. I mean to.
We talked about it last week, Hope.
Yeah, I beat the game. It was good. I gave my thoughts on it last week. That's and then I'm reviewing Path of Exile 2 later, which got delayed, and then I'm doing a preview. But I think next time we have a show, my preview will still be under embargo, so I don't think I'll be able to talk about that for a little bit. But yeah, I'm doing stuff coming on to the end of the year here, and everybody should go vote. That's what I got.
Yes, agree on all. Eric just posted who's in Nova Scotia, by the way, and at SG. He said, last time the U.S. tried to mess with Canada, we burned down the White House, which is the old-timey equivalent for teabagging. So,
okay. That's what you think would happen the last time we interacted. That's very funny.
Anyway, chat, you've been great today. Thank you for all the support as always, you guys. Love you. Love the conversations. Thank you. I'm off to play more Veilguard, and we'll see where this journey continues to take us. Hope you have a great week in gaming, of course, and we will talk to you next Sunday. Until then.
Peace.